This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Hello everyone, and welcome to a new year, and welcome to a new season of the Major Series. We start off here on the European side of things with the Daytona 2.4 here. Multi-class racing action on the way here to start off this new Major season. I'm Connery Maddock, I'm joined by Nolan Rempel, and a little bit later on we'll see the appearance of Justin Prince, but as I said, Nolan, it's a new season, new opportunities for all our drivers and teams await.
Absolutely, Connery, and what a better way to start off than at the beautiful Daytona International Speedway. This week, we're at the road course, and a little further on down the line, it will, of course, be for the Daytona 500, but today, we're using the road course layout with the course Gibson cars, the famed C7 Daytona prototype, and the GTEs from the Porsche, the Ferrari, and the BMW, and then, of course, the Mercedes AMG and the Audi GT3s. It's going to be a thrilling race, as it so often is.
Yep, it should well be. Just to give you a little bit of a rundown of how the season is going to pan out this time around here in 2020, let's pull up that schedule. We start off with this, the Daytona 2.4. Then we move on to the Daytona 500, so a little bit of oval racing action going to be going on here. The Rockingham 400 later on as well. And of course, you cycle yourself down. You have big appearances from such as Indy 500, the Le Mans, all the famous racing events that you have in the real life side of things. The Majors has just compiled them all into one series, Nolan.
Well, that's why this Major Series is so incredibly famous, is for that exact reason, because it takes all of these great events that we all know and love throughout the world, and takes them and puts them all into one series. Because you know what? Why not? Let's put all of the great races and have them all in one big fell swoop, shall we?
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, with this particular race, of course, we can get those statistics up on screen for you now. You already mentioned them, Nolan, the cars that we'll be using here today, the Corvette prototype. We've got GTE machines as well as the German GT3 cars. We'll be going 2.4 hours of racing here today, 144 minutes, so 2 hours and around about, it's going to be 144 minutes. There we go. As we'll get a rolling start here. We have an instant cap as well. So once the teams hit 40 on their incidents, then they will have to take themselves a stop and hold penalty. And of course, the more instants they get, the more penalties that they will incur. So you just have to be very, very careful when it comes to the off tracks, especially.
When it comes to the off-tracks and when you're trying to overtake as well, this is a track that's known to be difficult to overtake. In the actual road course section, surprisingly, most overtakes you might be seen completed on the oval. It is, of course, where the draft is the most prominent. That is why so many teams today are going to be running a very low downforce package.
Yeah, one of the lowest you'll see across the season, of course. As right now, we have a little bit of a sort of special qualifying session going on because it's basically a shootout style format. So each driver will get themselves a one flying lap. That is going to be it. And, well, if you fail that, then, well, you're going to have to start at the back of the grid, no questions asked. So currently out there, we do have Kurt Crum, who's out there looking to try and get himself a decent lap time set. He comes from Bombshell Motorsports, as he's coming to the end of a lap here. Of course, he's part of that GT3 class in that Audi R8 LMS machine. As now coming across the start-finish line, there we go. And he's going to be able to not set a lap time just yet. That was just his sort of out lap. And now he's going to go pedal to the metal.
And when it comes to these types of shootouts and you only get one attempt, you have to make sure that it is very, very crucial to get that lap right. And Kurt Crum, he's a very talented driver, and well, I guess you could say that's why he's up here in this final shootout of the day. Qualifying, of course, has been going on all week long, as a matter of fact, Connery, ever since Monday, just last week. And now the top drivers from Q1 have advanced straight into Q3, while Q2 set the rest of the grid behind these guys for the top pro splits. And now Kurt Crum on his flying lap. This is where it's got to be crucial. Right here, this corner, you got to maximize that exit out to the oval. And if you don't, well, that can basically screw up your entire run.
Yeah, absolutely. So now he's onto the NASCAR bankings. Just hold it wide open all the way through here. Allow those gears to climb up into 6th now. As you exit the NASCAR, well, the NASCAR turn 2 there, and then you get yourself set for the braking zone into the bus stop. Careful, careful, careful when it comes to these apexes. And Kurt Crum, that was a bit of a moment. Quite a bit of lost time coming through there. But still, you'll have to carry on and try and salvage a lap time here coming through those final couple of NASCAR turns. But that was a heart-in-mouth moment there for Crum.
So Kurt Crum experiencing a little bit of difficulties, and that is going to definitely compromise his entire time. The bus stop chicane, notorious for an incident such as that, with the little twitch on the entry. We are racing into the dusk, but it is not quite dusk just yet. The track is still 70 degrees Fahrenheit, with the air being about 68. So things are looking to get, antsy between some of these drivers. We now have Henry Bennett in the Mercedes AMG GT3 flying to the bus stop chicane. Now, he is much cleaner to the bus stop than Crum was, and he's looking to beat that time.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see Henry Bennett look to circle himself through. You can see his current lap time, 1 minute 30 seconds coming out of the NASCAR banking here. And, well, it's a 1 minute and 43.3 to beat here for Henry Bennett. Is he going to be able to manage it? It looks like he will. Coming across the line at 142.531 there for Henry Bennett. And he gets himself to the front of that GT3 class for now. We also do have David Baker as well. He's heading his way through the bus stop, and, well, he's going to be the last of the three to set their lap times here in GT3s. What place does he start? Front row? Does he start second row? This is basically it for David Baker.
So right now, it is Henry Bennett on provisional pole in your GT3 class, but Baker looking to change that. This will be the decider, thundering up to the tri-oval, to the line. Does he do it? The answer is going to be no, he does not. David Baker has to settle for second. It'll be Henry Bennett on pole in your GT3 class. Riley Thompson in the Ford GT, one of the first GTE cars to be set in the lap. He is storming by on the outside of the oval now.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll get ourselves a view of him as he heads his way across the line. Riley Thompson, of course, that was an out lap, so he is going to be the first driver to set themselves another lap, a lap time here. The first driver in your GTE field to get themselves that baseline set. And for some of these drivers, Nolan, would it be better for you to go first, or for you to go last, or for you to go in the middle?
I'd almost say it'd be better to go last, because then you got a little bit more rubber down on the track, so you have that little bit more grip. But Thompson, of course, has the grip from the GT3s and the rubber that they put down to give him a little bit of a helping hand here. So Thompson could be getting in a fast lap here. We know that the Fords, they definitely have quite a bit of front-end top speed. Oh, a little bit of a bobble coming off onto the NASCAR oval. So we'll have to see whether Riley will be able to make that up when they get to the bus stop.
Yeah, he'll have to. Through those NASCAR turns once again. Absolute joy. I guess if you do those in real life, those G-forces must be insane coming through there as you get pushed down into your seat. But now into the bus stop he goes. Clipping those apex quite well. Pretty clean. Definitely very, very clean there for Riley Thompson coming through the bus stop. So this looks like it's going to be a decent lap time here. And, well, in a sort of situation like this, I think you'd rather get an okay lap time and just sort of go at 98% rather than go 100% and risk a mistake or an off-track that invalidates your one and only lap. But for Riley Thompson, across the line will be provisional pole, of course, but it's going to be the time to beat 1 minute 40.9 there for Riley Thompson. So everyone else, we see Fascia Ponti heading his way through the start of the lap. David Barraclough is going to be the next one to come across the line there for that GTE field. Now he has a margin to beat. Can he do it?
Well, let's wait and see. Barraclough on the NASCAR Oval. He was neat and tidy in that BMW through the bus stop. You know, sometimes, though, it could be made up in the road course, so we're going to have to wait and see as he thunders up towards the tri-oval. Will this be the lap to beat Riley Thompson, or Thompson in the Ford prevail? It's Beamer versus Ford almost onto the apron. And he is going to go top of the boards. Provisional pole for David Barraclough. It's now all down to Unorthodox Motorsports, Adam Fecci-Ponti.
Yeah, Fecci-Ponti, he knows what he needs to beat now. It's a 140.4 that he needs to overcome to start pole position coming into that race session. So a lot of pressure on Fecci-Ponti right now as part of that number one car. Can he get himself to number one in qualifying for GTEs? That is the big question. Just the final run to the line now, and it's a 140.998. It's not enough to get himself onto even that front row. He qualifies in third. David Barraclough, your pole position sitter in GTEs.
And now the Daytona prototypes are the ones that are on course. Dallas Pataska, the first of those drivers to head on out. Excuse me, no, it's not. It's Dawson Brock, the first driver to lead the Daytona prototypes. He's thundered across the start-finish line now. And, of course, the Daytona prototypes, the fastest cars you'll see all day, and also the most unpredictable, especially at turn number 1. The back end can come around so incredibly quickly on these cars. I've been seeing it through practice all week. I've been seeing it in qualifying. I've even seen it in the support races that have been run throughout the week as well. So these prototypes, this is definitely where all the risk is, actually letting off the gas a bit on the exit to avoid running off into the grass.
Yeah, that's a decent, well, just a little bit of time lost, maybe a couple of tenths of a second, but it's better losing a couple of tenths of a second than invalidating your one and only lap here. So good call there for Dawson Brook to just back out of that one. It might mean that he doesn't start pole position, but we'll just have to wait and see. He comes out of the infield section and onto the banking once again. 5 minutes and 30 seconds left remaining in the session. Of course, plenty of time to work with to get these qualifying times in and set. And now coming out of that return to that Grizzly TFR Pro car. Of course, going to be the first one across the line, so he has no idea how good he is in comparison to the other drivers until those other drivers set themselves their lap times. Can be a sketchy situation. I wouldn't want to go first in this situation, but sometimes you just have to deal with it as Dawson Brook out of the final corner. Just that short run to the line now.
He is coming across the line, and I think I actually see a bit of damage on the left front of that car, so might have hit the pit wall on the exit lap when he came out, Connery. It's a 136.799 for Dawson Brock across the line. Dallas Pataska already on the NASCAR Oval through 3 and 4, so he's going to have the question of will it be enough to beat. Remember, it did look like Brock had that bit of damage, which might have hindered his overall top speed. It doesn't take much to start affecting these cars. So will he beat him, and if so, how much? It's a 136.428. Just destroying the time from Dawson Brock.
Gabriel Roos is going to be the final driver in your Daytona prototypes to set a lap time. Bouncing out of the infield section and onto the banking. That Kinetic Europe car now What could it do when it comes to qualifying here now? It's a 1:36, 4:08 to beat. That was the time set by Pataska. Brock, maybe that little bit of damage, maybe a bit of an unfortunate error. Of course, we did see one coming out of the International Horseshoe where he did have to lift, and that could make up the at least part of that 0.3 of a second lost. Has Gabriel Roos binned it? Yes, he has. He's invalidated his lap time coming through the bus stop chicane. That's so unfortunate. He was the only driver in this session to have a lap time invalidated, and that's a cruel way to have it done.
Right in the last part of the bus stop chicane, cut it just a little too tight and went into the grass. Went in there with a little too much entry speed and couldn't keep it tight enough. And there you see it, missed one apex, and if you miss one apex, well, you're going to miss all the others. And that's what happened there, and he just parked it immediately. That off track was enough to invalidate that lap. He'll be having to start third place in your prototype field.
He will. So this is how your top 3 looks in each class when it comes to that race session. And we can see as we get ourselves those up. You see Dallas Pataska, pole position in LMP1, in Daytona Prototypes. Don't have any LMP1s here. What am I talking about? Dawson Brock in P number 2, and of course we have Gabriel Roos as well, who isn't exactly showing, but he will start in P3 in your prototypes. David Barraclough will be pole position in GTEs. Riley Thompson on that front row as well. Fasaponte will start P3. Henry Bennett, though, in GT3s will start pole position. David Baker on the front row with him, and Kurt Crum will line up in the 3rd spot. So there we go. That is your shootout qualifying over and done with here, Nolan. Quite a bit of drama, and especially towards the end there with Roos not being able to set a lap time.
Yeah, that was unbelievably cruel for a way to end off the session. And it's a very easy mistake to make. If you go in with just a few miles an hour of too much speed, well, that's exactly what's going to happen. You're going to end up flying off the track, and it's not a good scenario for everybody. And even if he was allowed to continue and that off track didn't invalidate the lap, he would have gotten at least a 2-second slowdown penalty as a result of that too. So there just would have been no point in finishing the lap. So he decided to pull it off right away. It's a harsh way to end the lap, but you know, it's a mistake. It is what it is.
So, with that done, we're going to get ourselves changed over to the race session, but don't go away. Of course, we'll have to go to a very short commercial break to do that, but it's going to be an absolutely fantastic race if that shootout qualifying is anything to go by. So, see you guys in a couple of minutes.
This is Jim Beaver, voice of the Lucas Oil Off-Road Racing Series. Introducing Pro 2 and Pro 4 trucks on iRacing. Game on!
To the front bumper, and he hits him again now. Ray Alfala into the outside wall.
He's going to pass nearly 3 cars down that front straightaway, and he's going to get them all done with. What amazing!
Racely to the inside goes Logan Cloudman is going to touch in. Pit press sideways. What a save!
Look to the outside as Trunkgate goes off. De Jong into second place.
Going for the switchback. Oh, pinpoint driving.
It's howling down to the inside.
There's contact though. Wide left of the racetrack. Chris Renner drives it back down underneath, and he takes that second spot right back. Joker goes to Garrett Lowe.
Garrett Lowe should take victory with all that contact.
He's going to try and make the move around the outside the parabolica. That's not going to work, but he's going to try and get the cut back here. Get the run out the parabolica. That's beautifully done there. Makashube, there's a little bit of door banging as well.
Welcome back, everyone, to RaceSpot TV and the iRacing Esports Network's coverage of the Daytona 2.4 for the Major Series European region. It's round number 1 of what's expected to be a competitive season, and after a competitive qualifying session, the drivers are just about set to go to get the 2020 season underway. I'm Justin Prince, alongside of the booth is Nolan Rempel. He's Connery Maddock, and what should be an exciting one here on the Daytona International Speedway road course. A cool night for racing starting in sunset for 2 hours and 24 minutes of action today, Nolan.
Absolutely, Justin. That is what the Major Series is all about, is providing the best kind of show possible. And like we said in the qualifying session just before, what better way to start it than here at Daytona International Speedway for the Daytona 2.4 course. Not the last race we're going to have, as you see on the schedule up on your screen. Next month, we're going to be staying over here, but on a different format of the track for the Daytona 500, arguably one of the most popular events of the entire year. But, as you know, the Daytona 2.4, it's a very good warm-up.
Absolutely, it's a competitive schedule, to say the very least, challenging all different disciplines. Stock car racing and oval racing, open wheel racing, and dirt racing, along with the road courses across the entire Major Series schedule throughout 2019. Should be a competitive one, but today's race will see some competitive cars. The Corvette prototype, along with the GTE class. You'll also have the GT3s for the next hour, 144 minutes. One thing to note with the rolling start and the race overall today: every 40 incident points, it is a stop and hold at 24 incident points, and every 8x afterwards in terms of total points. If you get 40 total incidents in the 2 hours and 24 minutes, your race is done. So it'll be important to keep your car clean and not get any off tracks.
Yes, absolutely. That's going to be one of the key factors of the day, is keeping the car as clean as you can possibly get it. It tends to almost be a race of attrition, especially on the oval. So difficult to pass, especially going even into the horseshoes. It's a lot more difficult than you'd expect. The track is, of course, very tight, and at some points, even just past that left kink that makes up turn 4, it's barely 2 lanes wide. So the oval is definitely where we're going to be seeing a majority of the actual passing action to be taking place today.
Absolutely should be a fun one today. In total, 56 drivers are all set to buckle up into their seatbelts. We're just about set to look at your starting grid to see how they will start the 2020 Major Series European Region season here on iRacing Esports Network and RaceSpot TV. The drivers are all set to go to the grid for today's racing action. As the drivers get buckled up and put into the race cars, let's take a look at how they will start for today's racing action after the qualifying session Q number 3. And it's Dallas Pateska on top of the board, followed by Dawson Brock. Gabriel Russo starting in 3rd, along with Tim Clausen's in the DP class, with Tim Clausen's in 4th. Tyke Heviff, it will start in 5th. Ross Banfield in the 6th position. He'll start in front of Travis Henderson and Joshua Wolf. Yudikwas Putaklis will start in 9th position, with Alan Tessier inside the top 10. Trevor Verbersky starts in 11th spot today, with Daniel Sharp in 12th, with Yo Velarde in 13th position. Former IndyCar driver and current GSRC commentator Richie Hearn starts in 14th position, with Michael Lane, Diego Jimenez Hormilia, and Darwin Mintz rounding out the 17 drivers in the DPs. Nolan, you have the field for the GTEs.
And it's going to be David Barraclough to start off the GTEs, a good 5/10 up from Riley Thompson in the shootout. Unorthodox Motorsports, Adam Fecciponti in 3rd place, with Stefan Schlachter in 4th. Mike Gaunt in 5th, with Grande Fabrice in 6th. Colin Marzolf in 7th. Shane Norton in 8th. Mike Kelly in 9th. Tom Drilling in 10th. Christopher Ems in 11th. Mike Golightly in 12th place. Giles Winan in 13th. Rene Owara in 14th. Jacques Su in 15th place, with Michael Hagstrom in 16th place. Andy Banfield 17th. Jesus Hurtado Requio in 18th. Miguel Angelos Salidos. And Pedro Vostrel in 20th place, Jaron Morgan in 21st with Liam Sheen in 22nd, Richard S. Eisel rounding off your 23-car GTE field.
GT3 field will roll in. Henry Bennett leads that field with David H. Baker, Kirk Crum, Eric Mick, Marcus Niskanen amongst those driver. Also have Nicholas Skeets also in towards that field, Andreas Robertson and many others in this field today. But the prototypes are all set to go. It'll be Dallas Bataska leading them to the green flag today on the inside. On the outside, it's Torque Freak Racing's Dawson Brock. As they get all set to go, an early jump, green flag is out. We're underway for the Daytona 2.4. They rush their way for the first time into turn number 1, too wide for a majority of the positions, but Gabriel Ruse already up to second spot, and his kinetic racing machine as the rest of the cars roll their way into turn number 1, starting with the GTE class.
And so far, David Barraclough's got a good start, got one car running wide. Mike Gaunt taking a bit of a wider line in that Porsche 911 as they throttle themselves to the first few corners. The GT3s are also underway throughout the midst of this race, but they are already down and into this horseshoe as well. The International Horseshoe almost looking for 3 wide as David Baker up the inside of Richard S. Azel in the BMWs. Some of the GT3s and the GTEs, of course, very similar speed differences, especially on the oval. Could even create some interclass battling, do you reckon?
I think potentially as well, absolutely, in this race, especially with so many cars in the field for the next 2+ hours. It's a clean start for the entire 56-car field today. As you look on board for the first place driver at the moment inside your classes at the moment, they're fighting their way out of the turn number 6 and back onto the NASCAR oval on NASCAR 1.
And we've already had a little bit of contact up front. Ross Banfield just went down 2 spots. He was fighting for 6th with one Joshua Wolf coming into the bus stop chicane. And Wolf got a bit of a slower run than he thought, got rear-ended by Banfield, and then Banfield almost swapped pain with Udas Muteklis on the exit of the bus stop.
Severe damage, in fact, on Banfield's car at the moment, as you'll take a look at this on the Race Spot TV replay. And side by side of the bus stop, not what you want to do, as he's now got left side front damage on his prototype.
So things not looking good for Banfield for the start of his race. He's down to 9th, but still holding that top 10 spot. He can definitely try to fight back. Travis Henderson, one driver that's dropping down the order, and he is dropping down quickly. What in the world happened to him?
Have to take a look. Travis Henderson had a decent start to this race, but he is off the track for the time being, it appears. So 16 of the prototypes looking fairly simple so far. Right now for the GTEs, they're looking pretty calm at the moment. We'll go and see and take a look what happened here, as we'll see what happened here. It might have been it seems to be a technical error is what we're seeing for Travis Henderson, unfortunately for him.
Well, you hate to see that happen early on in the race, especially, you know, the first few laps. It's definitely not the way you want to start off your season with some technical errors. Hopefully he'll be able to get those sorted and rejoin us on track later on in this race. The prototype field, though, still single file and throttling their way back through the NASCAR oval. Got a little bit of fighting further back, almost going 3 wide in the background with Banfield up on the top side of the racetrack.
Looking at the fights for positions at the moment, Pataska looking to run to the bottom side, but Gabriel Ruse looks like he might be electing to be a bit conservative, save a little bit of fuel, stay inside the slipstream train along with Tim Claussens as well as Dawson Brock at the moment. The side-by-side behind you seen was Kevith and Joshua Wolf. Joshua Wolf just moved himself up to the top 5 and wants to catch up to some of his teammates.
Oh, we got trouble behind them. 2 prototypes going around just out of turn number 1. It is Banfield again caught up in an incident, and beside him, it is Diego Jimenez or Emilia that went around as well. So 2 prototypes experiencing some difficulties as Bombshell and Unorthodox come together. They were almost 3 wide entering turn number 1. And just too close to make contact. That's really not a couple corners you should be fighting for position over.
Someone had a bit of give and take, do you think, here, Nolan, in that situation?
I definitely think that, you know, a couple drivers should have given, should have taken a little bit. And, you know, it's hard to say who could be at fault for that one. I think it was just one of those early racing deals. It's difficult, but, you know, you got to try to work with what you can get. Gabriel Roos still up front, and he is all over the back of Dallas Pataska. Might try to make a look if he can get that good runoff, but in fact he does not. He's going to drop back a good bit off of the oval.
You're looking right now as Pataska last time by a 137 flat. For Gabriel Roos, a 136.7 with the help of some of the draft. But Pataska is one of the top road course drivers to watch for this season. He also is connected with eNASCAR racing organizations in terms of that side. So he's someone who could be a threat in 2020 on both sides of the racetrack as he bubbles this car.
Absolutely. It's something that could definitely be the threat, and here he goes. Looks for the inside, but can't get to the inside to make it work. Almost a little bit of a lockup for both drivers into the corner on the left front. You saw Dallas Pataska took a bit of a wider line, but Roos was not able to make that work. But Roos, he is definitely looking racy, trying to find a way through. It's going to be Pataska now taking the defensive line.
Still taking the defensive line at the moment as he works his way out of turn number 5, off to turn 6 to get back into NASCAR 1. That will be the swing through turn number 7 on the road course. 11 total turns here at Daytona International Speedway's road course. They're 3.56 miles, and they have been running pretty sturdy so far up the front. By the way, for the class leaders so far for the GTEs, it's David Barraclough at the moment and David H. Baker in the lead for the GT3s. Let's take a look at Barraclough at the moment up on your screen. Adam Fassi-Ponti in second spot with Riley Thompson rounding out your top 3 at the moment for TDR.
So David Barraclough and Adam Fassi-Ponti currently your top 2, and about a second apart as they enter NASCAR 1. At the moment, it's looking like Fassi-Ponti is going to have to back off and wait for Riley Thompson. Might have to take a bit more of a defensive line. So far, your GTE field, not a whole lot of position swapping early on. It looks like everybody's already trying to get spaced out in your GTE field. Pretty early on, things are still pretty single file for now, Justin.
Let's bring in our third announcer for today and also director Connery Maddock. Your thoughts so far on the early racing action across the track, as for 2 of the classes it's been spread out. For the prototypes, it's been drafting affairs.
Yeah, and this is kind of what we usually see at races here at the Daytona Road Course, especially with the draft being as prevalent as it is. Everyone except for the prototypes actually got away pretty cleanly here, which is surprising to see, especially considering the first sector on the first lap. On this racetrack, because that can be very sketchy. You're immediately into a very tricky turn 1 and into a little sweeper as well. And when you're all stacked together still in a pack, that can be very hard to negotiate. So props to everyone for getting through that okay.
Indeed so far, and you're looking right now at that position battle once more. This is David H. Baker up at the front of the field here. David in that Grizzly Motorsports machine looking very comfortable at the moment, but is leading a train of Eric Mick, Henry Bennett, and Kurt Crum along with Marcus Niskanen. So at this point, do you elect to save fuel here, Connery, at this point, because it is an endurance race? Still, you have to think about big picture.
Yeah, you do, and it's not the longest of races, but it's also not the shortest either. So you do have to factor in a lot of the endurance racing strategies that you tend to see, especially when we get to the point where we get to see the 24 hours of Daytona in the not too distant future here on iRacing. So for these guys that are deeper in this train, I think the fuel saving strategy would be particularly good, especially if you're in the GTE class. Because the fueling time is always important for those once they come down on towards pit lane. So the likes of David Barraclough, who currently leads that class, do have to be very careful that they have to try and factor in that they'll have such a much longer pit stop time than pretty much the rest of the field due to the fact that they're running at the very front. So that's something you have to keep in mind, and don't be surprised if we see a couple of changes for the race league once the first pit stop cycle comes in.
Absolutely. Nolan, your thoughts on that point?
Well, I think the fuel savings definitely going to play in big time, especially with the oval. You can just completely tick away the laps of fuel on the oval. That's where you use a majority of your fuel load, not actually on the road course, but on the oval, because you're completely flat out for over a half of the lap here. So I think the fuel strategy And saving fuel is definitely going to become more prominent, and it looks like it is being prominent, especially in the early stages.
Indeed, right now, as you see everyone staying single file for the most part, Colin Martzoff is a bit under attack, though, towards the back end of this choo-choo train at the end of the top 5 for the GTEs. Take a look here as Martzoff, trying to hold on to the bottom side, took the high line as Grand Fabrice trying to go for the attack along with Shane Norton. So both of those cars getting a little bit antsy as they're starting to lose touch to Riley Thompson and Stefan Slacker up in front.
When you start to battle, especially on the oval, that's where you lose all of your time. Grande Fabrice taking a much tighter line to that BMW through the bus stop, and he's got a better jump on him off the exit 2. He's going to look to the outside. It doesn't look like he's going to try to make the pass. He's going to let Martzoff off the hook on this one. It's definitely difficult to pass around the outside of the oval, and that's what makes the racing line also the best defensive line when it comes to the oval.
Indeed, and right now, even with the last amount of time, not electing to try and go for the pass. They will indeed, though, catch up to Stefan Slacker, who had to check up big time for Riley Thompson up in front of him. So now they're back to a 5-car train all of a sudden with a bit of that check.
Shane Norton in the back is definitely looking to try and find a way through as well. He's looking to pick out any mistake he can and capitalize it, because he has been looking a little looky in the back of this little field.
We've had a swap for the prototype race lead, though. Gabriel Ruse has been able to pass by Dallas Pataska. He made the move last time by through the International Horseshoe. That is turn number 3, so he is now your race leader in the kinetic racing machine. He does have a little bit of damage, though, should note, on the left front part of his prototype, and he's already going to allow Pataska to get the run back to take the lead lap this time. So he won't get credit for the lead lap, but it looks like Gabriel Ruse did get the speed before to make a pass.
You kind of wonder at this point if Ruse actually maybe bumped him out of the way. That's usually where we see the damage come from. It's where we saw Ross Banfield's damage come from when he gave a bit of a shunt to the back end of that other prototype that he was involved with. So I'm wondering, perhaps there was some contact that was made in completing that pass. It would explain why Ruse let him through, and well, there you can see on the track map on the bottom right of your screen, that is how close the prototypes are to lapping your GT3s and your GTE fields, and it's really just showing the speed difference between the prototypes and our GT racers today.
And it's going to be interesting how traffic management's going to be, especially once they get to the speedway portions of the track. As was talked about a little bit before that, the straight line speeds for the GTEs and GT3s are about the same. The corner speed is the main difference. That was discussed today during the Nordic Le Mans series a little bit when talking about the Daytona 24 hours at Daytona. But now these prototypes are about to reach the back end of some of the drivers who either started from the pit lane or have had some incidents to begin their round today.
Absolutely. So this will be interesting to see how the fastest cars will deal with some of the slowest cars, especially when you get into the road course. And that's where they're going to catch them, because that road course, it is very unforgiving, especially when you're trying to get around lap traffic. Like we said, it is very, very difficult to pass, and that GTE going to run very wide and go straight on into the barriers. So Richard Eisel in the 45 having a big moment. He's still got prototypes screaming up on him, though.
That was the first lap car they were about to reach, and that was a bit of a wild excursion for that BMW. Now it's breaking up some of the prototypes. This is the second pack that he's in front of, and look how dicey this is getting. BMW in the grass as he gets out of the way just in time. That could have been disaster.
Now those prototypes certainly aren't looking patient today, are they? They're wanting to get through fast, and that was really dicey. At least he's still in the grass trying to find a way through. Prototypes now back up onto the oval. Ruse is within striking distance of Dallas Pataska. This is where we'll see if he really wants to go for the move, or if he's going to back off and just save fuel a little bit here.
At this point, Ruse, he wants the race lead. Pataska will allow him to get it as he'll now elect to save a bit of fuel through the bus stop this time. But they're about to reach Sergio Moresi next, and then Jared Morgan. Some of the GT3 cars that are in this field. Up and back goes Dallas Pataska for the race lead once more out of the bus stop.
Well, I think Gabriel Roos might have gotten a slowdown penalty. He cut that chicane a bit tight, and he's got a slowdown now because of that. That's why he took the wide line throughout the oval. You wouldn't have done that if he didn't have a slowdown. He's not lost out on first, he's lost out on second, third, and now it's going to be Clem Clausen to go up the inside, side by side. The turn number one is always risky. They're going to get really close, but manage to keep it off each other, and Pataska will hang on to the race lead still side by side, but he will clear him. And just in time, here comes the GT3s.
Starting to reach the traffic is the prototypes for the first time. They have an estimated 80 laps to go this time by as they work their way by those GT3s. The GT3 clipping the grass this time. It actually breaks up the lead pack just a little bit. Getting a bit dicey now for this race lead in the early going.
Certainly is, so Pataska is able to hang on for now, but I think it's evident that with how powerful this draft is, he's not going to be able to hang on forever. So sooner or later, he's going to have to really start looking in his mirrors and trying to find some other way that he can break through this field.
Indeed, here you're still seeing them follow on into the corners here at Daytona International Speedway. This is down the back straightaway along the billboards as the lap traffic of Jared Morgan moves to the inside line. Nicholas Skeets, meanwhile, just had a full cut of the chicane, meanwhile. He was one of the top cars in his class before that point.
Yes, so Nicholas Skeets having a little bit of difficulties making that chicane.
The 689.
Yes, he just cut the whole chicane entirely. Didn't even really try to make it. He was side by side. Oh, actually, there was some contact, and there was a spin in there. What happened was Mike Golightly actually passed going into the chicane and then spun it off into the grass on the bus stop chicane and almost collected Peter Vostro in the 404 while he was at it.
You can see the blinking lights just before that incident there. As this is it right about here. You see the side-by-side and ends up aborting. Didn't want to go side-by-side.
That was a wise move, and just off to the left of where that happened, there was another Porsche that went off and into the grass, didn't hit the barrier, kept it off and locked it down. So managed to get that car nice and clean. Things are looking very interesting, though, throughout this race, as now mistakes are starting to be made.
Yeah, we just had a GT3 almost run their way into the tire barrier, letting by some of the leaders, including Dallas Pataska, go. They're now reaching Andreas Robertson's TDR Mercedes-Benz machine. Will come up right in front of that Total Downforce racing machine and try and battle on forward up to the racing line. This could get dicey for third on, back into the bus stop. Hello, they say to the Mercedes, as there's a car that had spun around and trying to get going. That's Thomas Peterson.
Oh dear, so Thomas Peterson having some troubles as well, and that is one of the Mercedes that's in the grass. That's car number 9. And what happened to cause that car to go around, not quite sure. We're going to get that replay up on your screen right now. You saw that Porsche bailed out as well. Was this just a snap oversteer? And it was. Yes, the car just came around on him. He was battling for position with other cars in his class, though. So doesn't look like he's got any contact, though, on that number 9. So things are looking clean. Your prototypes, though, looking very, very dicey right now, as they are all over the backs of some of these other slower cars.
It is getting very tight. Some of the GT3s are heading off to the grass for evasive action to let by some of the faster cars. And the infield portion of the track is very, very tight. Only about a car length and a half, 2 car lengths difference between these lines. Meaning, if you make a mistake or you end up having to let somebody go, say, on your inside, there is very little margin for error here at Daytona.
Absolutely, and especially right after turn 4, that left-hand kink in the middle of the oval. That lane, that portion of the track isn't even 2 lanes wide. It's only about a lane and a half. You can barely fit 2 cars side by side without them making contact into the West Horseshoe. So it's a very difficult portion of the track, and it's where we tend to see quite a few of our incidents coming up is in the road course section, despite most of our passing taking place on the oval.
Indeed, right now, already about 20 minutes into the action, Tim Clausen's right now up in second spot. That's a +2 for him. It's now turned into a two-car battle for the lead because Brock and Ruse have both lost touch of the lead group with the traffic. They are already behind by about a second or so and needing a little bit of luck maybe to hold on to the draft of the leaders. They do have lap traffic in front of them, and they are fighting for third position. Dawson Brock taking the defensive line this time as they'll reach the lap traffic, which is checking up the race leaders.
Yeah, they caught that traffic at probably the worst possible point, and that traffic is going to have to get out of the way in a hurry because otherwise they're going to basically force their way through. Joe's winning, going to go around wide and let the two DPs through. Now it's up to Petrovostro to let the DPs through next, and he's going to move to the right side of the track now to do this. This might split your battle for third up, though, as Klaus has to jump on the brakes as the BMW had to make the corner. There's an angry flash of the headlights.
Petrovostro trying to get out of the way right now in the BMW. Looking like he's going to take his time, though. And Tim Clausen is now probably thinking, come on, I'm losing touch to the leader. Getting held off this time on NASCAR 1. Finally gets to the outside line. And Connery, I'm not sure if that's the best way to let by a prototype in that situation, is it?
Well, you know, you can understand the perspective of the GT car there due to the fact that it is the responsibility of the faster car to get past you. It's not you getting shown the blue flag and you have to immediately move out the way, but it does make things slightly more difficult, slightly more risky when things like that happen because these prototypes, they're fighting for position, they're fighting for the race lead of their particular class. Your best bet is probably to let them through as quickly as possible.
And now not only that, he's hooked up with his teammate first off, but second, the lead is already nearly 2 seconds for Dallas Pataska from that. Here's the thing though with the prototypes, is it going to be able to hold on though here, Connolly, based on experience?
Yeah, that's we'll just have to see. Of course, we kind of used to these sorts of frantic battles early on at Daytona road course races, and look at this traffic as well for the prototypes as well. Yet more to deal with here for all of these cars. And Pataska's actually being able to break away just a little bit. He now has a 1.4 second gap over Tim Claessens, and if Pataska can just continue to work on this gap and continue to try and stay outside the towing distance from Claessens, then he could just break away at the front of this field. But if he's not able to do that, it's so easy to reel other cars in once you even feel the edge of the draft here.
Yeah, that defensive line ends up seeing now Pataska work his way to the outside. The gap is already down to a second, and just like that, the effect of the draft comes right up and in. They're about to say hello to your GT3 leaders. Right now, at the moment, it is David H. Baker who is up in front, but he's about to reach lap traffic just in front of the prototype leaders. Henry Bennett is currently second in that class. Kirk Crum is in third. They're about to enter the shot just in front of Dallas Pataska and his run up here as you see them down into NASCAR 3 and 4. So this has the chance to break up this battle a little bit.
Alternatively, Kirk Crum could try to go for the look into turn 1 and actually hold up the Daytona prototype, but he's not going to do it. He's going to stay in line with the Mercedes, and no, he's going to look outside then to the inside, and this is going to check up that prototype for sure. Prototype going to have to go around the outside and nearly runs him over as well. Pataska having to take a much less than optimal line, and that has just put him back within distance of Tim Clausen's.
So that defensive line helps out a little bit, side by side. Now all of a sudden, the 2 second gap is gone, partly with the draft, partly with the traffic, as they'll get by Henry Bennett. But the driver that's smiling right now is David H. Baker. He's now pulled a little bit of gap, but he doesn't have draft help and has to get by Liam Sheen next for his own lap traffic management, as the GT3s now are reaching some of the GTEs at this point, it looks like, or vice versa.
So Pataska is going to most likely have to go to the outside around the lap traffic. This was actually discussed before this race. If they're going to catch traffic on the oval, the lap traffic, or the car's lap, you must go by on the outside. This was discussed in the driver's meeting prior to these races. So that is something that is going to be interesting to see. How can that hold things up? Clausen is going to back off. He's not going to try anything into the bus stop. I wouldn't put it past him, though, to try something going up into turn number 1. That was really, really close to being another slowdown.
Liam Sheen actually cut the bus stop to allow some of the traffic to get on through. That's how congested it was getting here. And they'll catch up to Mike Gaunt next, along with Mikael Hagstrom up inside the tri-oval of Daytona International Speedway. Under 2 hours to go with the Daytona 2.4 for the first round of the Major Series European Region Season. Contact right in front of the prototype leaders. It's Hagstrom around. He had contact from Mike Gaunt right in front of the leaders.
And that actually put some damage on Tim Clausen's rear end. He got clipped by that car as well, so this has just all gone wrong. It looks like Clausen is going to get away from that one safe and sound, but that was a big shot to the back of Hagstrom to spin that Porsche right around.
And I don't think Gaunt was expecting the braking zone. Gaunt had just, mind you, recovered from his own incident, was trying to send it a little bit more deeper as the lap cars were trying to battle to the inside. And Tim Clausen is probably thinking, what is going on here? Just barely avoided having significant damage, severe damage rather.
Yeah, I think Hagstrom actually tried to brake a bit earlier to let that lap traffic through, and instead, it just caused a big mess because he backed the braking zone up. And there you see just how early it was braking, and there was a bit of a bobble from Clausen's car. Definitely got clipped on the back end of that crash, but doesn't look like there's much damage, but he just might have gotten a slowdown, cut the chicane, the first apex, pretty tight.
Oh, trouble! Gabriel Ruse is around. Gabriel Ruse is around, trying to get around some of the lap traffic. Nearly ran over the back end of Andy Banfield's car, checked up so hard that he spun it around in the bus stop. Take a look at this, is that he'll catch up to Banfield and the corner entry of the bus stop and lock it up so much, it shoots hard to the right.
That is a very easy mistake to make. Those prototypes can be very, very twitchy. And it's exactly incidents like that. The reason why I'm not running the prototype myself in this series. I'd much rather prefer a car where I can rely on it a bit more under braking. But, you know, with those prototypes, they can be so twitchy, especially under braking, that when you check up hard like that, you're just asking for the car to spin around on you.
That will move around some of the running order. Ty Keviv is now into the 5th position. To the 8th position now at the moment is Trevor Bobrowski, who is up +3. +7 for Darren Mintz, meanwhile. He is right now in the midst of a lead group, just behind some of these cars at the moment. So everyone's just getting into a rhythm, essentially, and it's difficult at this portion of the track if you're a prototype, because you're having to deal with so much traffic for the next half a lap, for the next half a circuit or so. Then you get to breathe for at least about 5 or 6 laps before you go through the traffic again.
Well, look at the bottom right of your screen. Look at how much of the traffic is congested all up into one place. Meanwhile, it's just a ghost town on the other side of the track. It's just incredible to see how much of the traffic is just jammed up in NASCAR 1 and 2. And it's so lonely over there in 3 and 4.
GTE race lead up for grabs. Fassiponti and Barriclow were fighting side by side just a moment ago in towards the start of the infield. He's looking to scrap right now that 84 machine to try and get this class lead for an unorthodox motorsports.
So Fassiponti trying to make the look. He is going to have to reel in Barriclow yet. He's going to have to do that on the oval. He's definitely not going to get that done in the road course. But there you see the deltas. He has been closing in. He lost 1/10 a few laps ago, but then 2 laps ago he closed in by over a 10th, almost 2 tenths, and then almost another 10th on the last lap. So Fassiponti is definitely closing the gap, and with this draft, he might be able to put himself in striking distance for turn number 1.
Can he get back into that distance once again, as to be expected? Does have some of the slipstream to be able to work his way towards the bus stop. It's going to come in especially right about here. See the time difference gaining 2 for the past 2 laps on the circuit. Barriclow, earlier braking this time compared to the second place car. Might be close to a slowdown though as they rumble across the yellow stripes for the end of the bus stop. So Fassiponti right now, Fassiponti not close enough to make a move quite yet, don't think.
And not just yet, but that car and that Ferrari, it is definitely closing, and it is closing in a hurry. Barriclow's going to have to be looking in his mirrors, because look at the closing distance as they come up to turn number 1. Again, not close enough to make that move, but now he's going to be really harassing those mirrors.
Indeed, right now about a car length and a half back at the moment. As right now, estimated 67 laps to go this upcoming time by across the stripe. By the way, a change for second for the prototypes. Dawson Brock has been left by Tim Claessens this time, heading in towards the first part of the infield. Right now, they're 3 seconds back, though, of Dallas Bataska. Last time by, they were slower than Bataska by about a tenth or two of a second.
So it looks like in that battle, in for second place, they did lose out on that time, and that's the huge risk of trying to battle for position, is you always lose time at a track like this to the cars in front. You're never really going to gain anything unless you let them through and try to swap traffic with each other, try to slingshot your way back up to the front. But, you know, considering these two guys are on different teams, I really doubt they're going to be working together on something like that.
I believe they're to both Torque Freak Racing drivers, if I remember correctly here, but yeah. Either way, speaking of Torque Freak cars, there's still Barriclow up at the front, who is still leading the class at the moment. The UDOX machine still trying to keep up. Can he make a move this time? Adam, one of the top drivers last season, looking to get the run this time in towards the Daytona International Speedway Tri-Oval. Has a huge head of speed, about 177 miles an hour on the right side. Looking to try and take the class lead, and does. New race leader Adam Facciponti.
Well, he can't breathe just yet. He's still got Barriclow hot in his heels, and now it's going to be Barriclow to have that draft advantage. You got Rowdy Thompson still in third, and he is a few seconds back, still trying to wait in the wings. And don't forget, your prototypes could still be coming up on them as well. That was a beautifully executed pass around the outside as the replay up on your screen. Times it perfectly around the outside, braked just a little bit later, took that wider arc, and was able to clear him by the time they got to the apex. And right about there, you saw the BMW just bailed out trying to defend on that position, because at that point, Facciponti had the line.
He definitely did at this point. Now, what do you do with your Barriclow? Now he has a chance to save some fuel.
Well, you can either save the fuel or you can try to get the position back. And we're going to see in a minute here what Barriclow is going to want to do when they get by through the bus stop chicane.
Indeed, you can see the bit of that run, but the front stretch has been the better of the two. Looks like that Facciponti knows that there's a bit of the run. He was the Euro Sportsman champion last season, a part of that championship fight, and clipping some grass this time for the Unorthodox Motorsports machine. Again, though, keep an eye on the front straightaway for that run of speed. Barriclow, will he can try and control it? Will he try and take the position? Looks like that Adam knows that the run is coming, is trying to break that slipstream down the front straightaway, jerking left and right to try and slow up Barriclow. Barriclow can't get the run to even think of a move.
Barriclow decided to just take it nice and easy while Facciponti was weaving all over the track trying to break that draft. And break the draft he certainly did, because Barriclow could do nothing about it when they throttled down towards turn number 1. But look at how tight that is through the International Horse Troop.
Yeah, this is a very, very difficult fight for the GTE class. As we continue to look at this up on the screen. At this point, a huge dive, nearly making contact with David Barriclow.
I think he did make contact. It was the smallest of bumps, but I could have sworn that I heard a little bit of a crunch to the back end of Adam Facciponti's car. Barriclow's definitely wanted to go for that position. I think we've just established with that dive, he's not going to be thinking about saving fuel. He's going to be thinking only about how can I get this position back.
We have a pit stop for Gabriel Ruse. Not sure if it's scheduled or not here. Want to bring in Connery once again as we look at this battle up on the screen. What does it look like in terms of fuel mileage for these classes here today at Daytona?
Well, usually when you talk about Daytona prototypes, you talk about around about 50 minutes is when you start to think about coming down in terms of the fuel numbers. For GTEs, though, An hour plus is usually the margin. Same with the GT3s though, but it can be a little bit more marginal here at Daytona than it is at some other racetracks due to the amount of time that you spend on that 100% throttle. So don't be surprised if things get a little bit sketchy in terms of trying to flesh out those longer stints. But due to the fact that this is sort of an uneven race distance, we don't end on an even hour, it shouldn't matter all that much. So drivers actually have a lot more room to play around with the strategy here than if we actually went a full 3 hours, for example.
Absolutely. And Nolan, your thoughts here in terms of what you would do as strategy-wise if you were some of these team managers today?
What I would do is I would try to run the first stint out, try to play the long game there, keep it out as long as you can, and start focusing on where do we want to pit for the fuel a little closer to the end, because there is a point where you're going to need to put so much fuel in your car to finish off this race. And I think that's something you want to start to consider when you're closer to the halfway point. But when you're only half an hour in, like we're at now, I'd say there's quite a bit of breathing room to still think about that sort of thing yet.
And we're still keeping an eye on some of the cars across the track here as they roll their way out of the infield section. Still a lot of action to go here with about an hour and 48 minutes and 25 seconds up on the clock here at Daytona International Speedway. We'll be back with more action for the Major Series after these messages. You're watching the Daytona 2.4 on RaceSpot TV and the iRacing Esports Network. Welcome back, everyone, to iRacing Esports Network and RaceBot TV for more coverage of the Major Series European region. As you look at the fight for first place in GTE, where Adam Facci Ponti still continues to fight with David Barraclough at this moment. They have been scrapping for a while as they continue to move and fight on forward. Barraclough has been saving fuel as this fight has progressed in terms of strategy, so that is something to keep in mind, while Adam Facci Ponti has not been willing to even allow a run through the front stretch for Barraclough if he wanted to even think about taking this race lead back, Nolan.
Yeah, absolutely, and even on the last time through, he weaved around a bit, but kept it right in the middle, basically compromising a run that he wanted to make around the outside. And if you wanted to make a run around the inside, well, you wouldn't have the speed to get it because he got the run cut off from Dawson Brock at the prototype that had just cycled his way through. You saw that just at the bottom of the screen flying on by, and even now, Facciponti continuing to try to break the draft as they run up to the bus stop chicane, and he's really trying to make sure that he can hang on to that lead as long as he can.
How is this going to affect the strategy is going to be one of the main questions, though, because he was in the draft, yes, for the first part of the run, but now he's eating up a little bit extra fuel the second part of the run. Should know we do have a few prototypes who have elected to pit off and on in the strategy to mix things up a little bit. Daniel Sharp, the last of them. So drivers have been pitting off and on a bit off cycle. Facci Ponti this time saving with Barraclough having to now deal with another car behind him. It's Joshua Wolf, one of his teammates in Ford Torque Freak Racing, looking to say hello to him.
So Wolf didn't have to quickly find his way through, and Barraclough probably might let Wolf through, without too much incident. I'm sure Wolf probably won't be too impatient, being teammates and everything like that, despite being in different classes. And of course, behind Wolf, it is another teammate of his, Tim Clausens. So we really have a three-car train for Torque Freak Racing here. One GTE followed by a couple of Daytona prototypes. So, this is definitely going to be teamwork at its finest. Facci Ponti almost running off into the grass, and it looks like they're going to wait until the oval to let these DPs through.
Joshua Wolf has lost about 6 seconds to their other teammate Dawson Brock as this has gone on. As they finally move their way to the bottom side, blinky blinky will the lights go. As they drive on by, they also have Tim Clausens, remember, still hooked up behind, who has that front bumper damage now on his race car. He works his way by both of them. No one able to follow on through. So again, the class lead still up for grabs. Should note that David H. Baker still in the GT3s is in the lead by about 2 seconds or so. However, it has been fluctuating a little bit with some of the traffic here and there because Bennett, Crum, and Niskanen have all been hooked up essentially in that run.
Yes, very much so. So David H. Baker is definitely looking to hang on to his lead. He's doing a good job of that so far, and he's going to continue to do a good job of that as it is. Henry Bennett, of course, being his nearest competition, about 2.3 seconds back, but Bennett at this point is going to be more focused on Kurt Crum, who is right in the draft.
Pit stop window open for the leaders now with the prototypes. Pataska is in. We also have another prototype just stopping in the stall. Just now in the backdrop, that is Pudaklis. Both of them electing to take their pit stops now. The total time in the stalls for everyone who's taken service so far, about 21 to 30 seconds. A 24-second stop this time for Dallas Pataska. He's off and away. Everyone else in front of him, except for Michael Lane, have yet to pit. Brock, Wolf, Clausens, Tessier, Velarde, and Richie Hearn all need to take service for the first time so far with an hour and 40 minutes to go.
I actually think that may have been, I think it's safe to say that was a bit more of an early stop than we were expecting, and it could be right around that range, but it actually might not even be the worst idea to make your first stop early. That means you can just run flat out throughout the rest of the race and just push every stint in as long as you can possibly go. So that might be the case of what we just saw, and it wouldn't surprise me if that is what we ended up seeing played out throughout the rest of this race.
And doing the math here, if I'm adding this up right, if you pit right now, you can essentially split it up 50 and 50 for the end of the race. 50 laps on the stint if you can make it, 50 laps to get to the 50 minutes rather to get to the end. Dawson Brock gets it in at an hour and 39 minutes on the clock. So does the rest of the Torque Freak Racing machines. So all of them syncing up their strategies. We also have Tessier in, Velarde in. Also have coming into the pits Richie Hearn. So all of those drivers in. You see the net race leader is Dallas Bataska though, coming out of NASCAR 4.
Will be able to beat him out of the pits? That's going to be the question. It's a tight pit lane to get off. You need to make sure you're not off there too quickly. And it's going to be Patasco who's going to be back up into the lead before any of those cars on pit road can even get going. So Dallas Patasco is likely going to be cycling through back into your race lead once all of the pit stops are done and dusted.
And it's been a stellar run for him so far. Now, he's been a leading majority of the laps, has had the pace, and now is just in control of his own destiny. Now has to lap interclass traffic. That is Ross Banfield that he wants to get by at the moment. Banfield will give him the bottom side. So, Dallas Pataska in the lead. Everyone but Michael Lane have pit in the class so far for the prototypes. So the windows for the rest of the classes will start opening up in the next few minutes or so.
So it looks like the pit stop cycles are definitely going to be underway, and this could split up quite a few battles for position that we've been seeing on track. The one I'm curious about, if it will be split up or not, is our battle for the GGE race lead. It's safe to say that Barraclough has now been saving fuel because he's been able to go for the look so many times, and it's going to be Facci Ponti that's going to make the duck. Oh, he doesn't make the duck. I thought he was going to make the dive down the pit road at first, but he just let Barraclough through around the outside.
Have to wonder if maybe he had a slowdown or something along those lines and elected not to serve until the front stretch where he would be able to keep the draft. He's now going to be able to save fuel on his own now. They do, however, have to start lapping by cars like Thomas Peterson in the next few moments or so to have to deal with them down some of the straightaways. So, Facci Ponti saving fuel now, it looks like, for Unorthodox.
So Facci Ponti elected to save some fuel now. He let Barraclough save quite a bit of fuel in his draft, and he's looking to do the same now. Michael Lane from P number 8, your prototype class, is down into the pit lane now. So the pit stops continue to cycle on through.
That's the last of the lead prototype cars at the moment to have come into the pit lane. As you look now at some of the drivers fighting at the back end of the class at the moment. This is 10th on back or so, where it is Velarde looking to battle with Gabriel Ruse, his own teammate. They also have Richie Hearn hanging on to the back end of the battle. So this is now what could be a 3-car scrap if Richie Hearn can time it up right to be able to get and stay in the draft. Gonna lose it potentially though is Mike Gaunt still in the way of the cars right behind the Kinetic Racing Machine.
Oh, and Gaunt is run wide off the track and barely keeps it out of the tire barriers. So more misfortune befalls Mike Gaunt, who slid way off and was mere centimeters away from going into those tire barriers. But that has caused Hearn to lose the draft. It's going to be down between Gabriel Ruse and João Valverde.
Indeed, let's take a look at this on the replay. Again, this was the driver we were just mentioning holding up Richie Hearn a bit and just takes it wide.
Yeah, took that very wide indeed. Definitely wider than you probably would have needed. And that battle further down in the class has just been split up by one Tom Drayling, one of the Ferrari GTEs that just split that fight up in the middle of that DP fight between the Kinetic Racing guys.
Indeed, things are getting really, really dicey. To correct things here real quickly, as you look at the battling now for 6th and 7th position, there was a bit of shuffling compared to last season. It's Grizzly Motorsports that has a very large contingency this season. And some of them do have paint, some do not. Joshua Wolf, Travis Henderson on the pro team with David H. Baker, David Barraclough, Dawson Brock, for example. Some of those drivers had been at one point about Torque Freak Racing. The wild cards, Morgan Faborski, Tim Clausen's in this race today. And what has been an eventful one so far today. Kevith lined up along with Minton in this battle. This is getting dicey with Tessier also looking to follow on through. And on top of that, they also have Faborski in his Grizzly car looking to all battle and shape each other out, dealing with a bit of barrel push in the infield.
So it is looking like it's going to be a 4-car scrap here for 6th place. Once Varosky, Tessier, and Mainz can catch back up Ty Kvet. That's going to be the question. They've got America ahead of them in Reno Wara that could help this out. Just close this in. And excuse me, that is definitely not a Mercedes. It's not even in the same class. It's one of the GTEs. In fact, the BMW in the back end do look somewhat similar, so I apologize for that mistake. Mainz going to be in the draft of the Beamer. And Kvet going to have to go around the outside.
Up on the outside still, as this is going to break up the lead pack a little bit. Rene Aurora blinks the lights. Looking for the move, though, is Darren Mintz on the outside line of Kevin to fight hard. This is for 6th position. Still looking to dice their way into the corner. Kevin holds on to the position for the time being in the Black Eagle racing machine.
And that was a bit of a frustrated flash in the headlights from O'Wara, and I can't say I blame him. I think he was a bit frustrated that Mainz cut down right across his nose, and it looked like O'Wara had to check up a little bit to avoid turning the prototype. So can't say I entirely blame O'Wara for being a little bit frustrated with that one.
This is getting a little bit dicey as Tessier now gets on through to move up to 7th position. So they continue to dice on forward here. Going a bit back and forth for the positioning here.
A little bit of a bobble from Darwin Mainz, who's now going to be under attack from Trevor Vavrovsky in that prototype behind him, the number 10 versus the bombshell.
Trouble for ISO. Trouble for ISO in front of some of the lead cars. It was in front of Jared Morgan as well as some of the Air Class members of the prototypes. He went around in the bus stop section. He's that car you seen that brought up that smoke in that section. ISO, that yellow and black machine.
Oh, he lost the... I just looked back at it. He lost the back end right on the entry to the corner and got punted by one of the Ferraris, Jared
45.
Morgan.
That's the 45. As you look at some of the prototypes still battle along with some of the traffic here, the 45 machine is off to the lane. They already used one of their their one fast repair for the event today, as they're now in the pit lane.
So things are definitely not looking up for that number 45 BMW. Already had a few incidents today, and well, this one might be the one to take them out of contention for any serious positioning today. There is the car stopped in the infield up on the replay screens, and backing it up a bit further, we'll be able to take it through what happened. You'll see the back end snaps around on the entry, and then the Ferrari behind them just completely runs him over. Right there, there's the snap, and there's the hit.
And that caused a little bit of chaos in the bus stop for a moment or two. That's the second major incident for that car. The first one seeing a broken suspension where they were bumping and banging. You can see it one more time, losing the back end. Morgan finishes the job as he had nowhere to go. And the BMW is now pulled into the pit lane here. So, 1 hour and 31 minutes left on the clock here for the Daytona 2.4. And should note that Barrichello has pulled away now by 2 seconds for the class lead for the GTEs.
And Fittipaldi is definitely only losing time. He lost 1.5 seconds 2 laps ago in that class. So, Fittipaldi experiencing some difficulties of his own as he tries to reel that gap back in, but for now it's looking like Barrichello is definitely safe and sound in front of this position. The fight is back on though for 6th place in the prototypes. Tessier looking around the outside at the turn number 1. Kaveth still defending on the inside. Tessier, can he try to go for the over-under? He cannot make the look, but they did go side by side in turn number 1.
They also have to deal with cars coming out of the pit lane since some of the GTEs have elected to duck down inside the top 10. Take a look. This is the move you were referring to in the side-by-side. You can see a bit of a bobble on the corner entry trying to take it on the outside.
Little bit of a bobble, and that can be all it takes to send the prototypes around. So whenever one of those prototypes tends to bobble is when you just got to hold your breath because of how easy it is for those cars to snap around. We've already seen it a couple times today.
With the single file situation now, they continue to scrap along forward. Right now, this is they're already lining up essentially again to a 50-minute to go pit stop situation. So anything can happen in this sort of situation for the positions to start off their seasons. They're 26 seconds behind Dallas Pataska, the race leader for reference sake, as there goes Tessier off and away in the draft, as they'll now have to try and get around Jared Morgan.
Well, Kaveth might have a word or two to say about that position. He's going to want him back as they run up through the NASCAR Oval. He's going to look to the outside, almost going to look them 3 wide. They are going to be 3 wide for a moment as they get around the Ferrari. And now Tessier, Kaveth trying to look. Here comes Vavrovsky on the inside, but can't make the move down onto the apron. So that has actually just compromised Kaveth big time. The run from that position is going to be later on the brakes around the outside. And it will be Tessier to hang on to the position. Meanwhile, Kaveth still under threat now from Vavrovsky, who's trying to make that work. Still going to be side by side onto the brakes for the International Horseshoe. Still side by side throughout this corner. This is some seriously good race between the two. They're still side by side out through the exit.
Should note the race leaders for GTE have just pit this time by Barraclough, Thompson, Martzloff, Drelling, Aurora, Gaunt amongst the pitters. But you can see still some of the scrapping up on your screen with the side-by-side. Getting dicey still in the infield section of the racetrack. Vavrovsky now up for the time being in 8th position. Kevith in 7th. Pulling away now is Tessier as far as he can without the help of a draft.
So Tessier all on his lonesome up there. And like you said, GTE leaders are down into the pit lane. Barraclough did come down, and excuse me, GT3, I believe he said, is the one that came down to the pits.
GTE.
So it was the GTEs, and I'm just getting myself all confused.
We are also having some of the pit stops now for Facci Ponti. He's now just ducked into the pit lane for his service. Stefan Slacker still yet to come in. Shane Norden does duck down this time by for Barraclough. He's right now coming through the bus stop for reference sake. The pit stop time for them, for the lead cars, 30 seconds to 34 seconds. Some of the cars taking as little as 23 seconds of fuel. So a bunch of different strategies popping up in this race today.
Well, sometimes different strategy calls can be what makes these races so entertaining. And it looks like Adam Facciponti's actually taking tires in this stop as well. So Facciponti is going to take tires on this stop. I believe double stinted his tires on the last stop, and that will allow Barraclough back into lead by some margin.
Yeah, Barraclough is double stinting their tires right now. Connery, want to bring you in on your opinion on this one. The double stint versus the single stint. How will this work out? Because this is a major amount of time lost. 57 seconds in the pit box. I'm wondering actually if Facci Ponti might actually try the double stint for his last pit stop for the race, since they still have one pit stop to go, and save time that way on the track. Sacrifice the time now, get some fresh rubber. Hope it works out towards the end of the race.
Well, it's definitely an option to say the very least with some of the double stints that we can see, between things that are going on throughout the racing circuit, and it is interesting to see how these things can try to play out, and we'll have to wait and see on just what these things can do. I'm keeping eyes, though, on our battle for 8th in your prototypes, because that is definitely heated up right now.
Should note that the GT3s have ducked down some of the leaders. We'll keep an eye on this, as this is again in the traffic now for 8th. Locking up the brakes that time as Aurora as he tries to let by some of the cars in his BMW. Blinks the lights in go on by mode frustration, or thanks either way, as now Kevith will deal with the draft. Bobrovsky trying to take it up on the outside line of the bus stop. This could get interesting here in this section of the track.
boy.
Any give or take? No. Bobrovsky able to move on to the spot, however, as there comes the run, this time from Darwin Mintz.
Oh, that was close. You never want to go side by side through the bus stop chicane, and that is the definition right there of a game of chicken. Nobody wants to yield, and nobody's going to yield. It's going to be a case of who's going to back out first.
In that case, both of them pushed until someone had to lift to avoid potential contact. Double wide, 2x2. Valverde moving himself into the conversation of the top 10 for the first time in a little while for Kinetic Racing now in the midst of this fight. Looking to the bottom side, bringing up a puff of smoke.
It has been a very, very long time since I've seen a fight this fierce in a prototype field, whether that be LMP 1, 2, Daytona prototypes, what have you. And I am glad to see it because this is absolutely thrilling stuff that we're seeing side by side almost every lap. Mines and Bobrovsky getting sideways off of the corner this time.
Getting close and close in this diciness as Mintz loses the back end this time, taking the bottom side. As you look at some of the beautiful shots here at Daytona International Speedway in NASCAR 1 and 2 as some of the prototypes work their way still through the banking of the corner. Mintz taking defensive line. Valverde trying to take the offensive line this time. Elects to back off. Doesn't want to force it in the bus stop. So all of these cars are in pushing mode, knowing there's still one stop remaining, and majority of them look to be good on fuel to the finish if they can get to their window for the final stop.
Darwin Knight's going to have to take the outside line around John Lang in that Mercedes GT3. More lap traffic playing into things here. And so far, the draft is all so powerful. Will Mike be close enough to look into turn number 1? He is, and he's going to be up the inside. Bobrovsky not going to give, though, and they're all sorts of loose behind him as Valverde takes a wider line, and now Mines is on the defensive.
Not a lot of chances to breathe, and they're about to reach a ton of traffic coming up. They're also closing in on Gabriel Ruse because of the said traffic referred to. Ruse is only about 3 seconds or so up the road from these cars, so this might turn even more into a bigger fight in just a few moments if this times out right with some of the traffic through the NASCAR portion of the circuit.
Well, the way these drivers are racing the prototypes, they're not going to be very patient and getting by these cars. Sergio Moresi getting really loose on the exit onto the oval, but runs it wide, and the good thing he did, there goes your prototype battle by on the inside line. They're now closing in on damaged GTE traffic. This could prove troublesome as they're going to be approaching them right at the bus stop.
Let's see if anyone makes a move in towards this section. It's lap traffic movement and car around. Ty Kevith, he's around in the bus stop. Stopped along that section as he gets off the racing line.
Oh, poor Ty Kevith. That was a pass going into the bus stop. Was a little unsighted by a huge dive from Yal Valverde that I think might have earned Valverde an off track, if not a slowdown as well. And Kevith, there was no contact, just got caught up from the sudden braking and spun the car around.
And that was a very bold move first off for Yal Valverde to make that move first off rather. And now drops that car all the way back to 12th position. As we want to talk about though what's happening in GT3s, because here's an interesting situation. Kurt Krum and Peter Babasa ended up heading in a different cycle. They're the race leaders now in the class. They pit differently compared to the others because Babasa had a 42-second stop. Krum a minute and 3-second stop. Everybody else a minute and 10 seconds or so. So these drivers rolled the dice, and now they're in the class lead for the time being here, Connery.
Yeah, certainly an interesting development here in GT3s because, you know, as you quite rightfully mentioned there, Peter Balassa taking a very, very short stop indeed. 42.2 seconds was his pit stop time, and that promotes him all the way up into P2, and actually within touching distance of Kurt Krum in that race lead as well. So this is a big, big call here for Balassa. It will mean that he has a little bit more of an interesting time in terms of trying to get to the end of this race. So it's going to have to be a sort of another splash and dash for him. I predict what has happened here, that maybe Balassa has actually split this even until the end in terms of the field, because these cars would have had to take a splash and dash anyway at the end of this race, but it was just a matter of when, and Balassa looks to have taken his short step now.
Yeah, absolutely right now. Here's the thing to think about, though. Bennett and Baker are closing. Especially right now, Baker is on the back end of Balassa right now in the bus stop. That is for second place in the class. Bennett is just behind them. It's a 2-second difference in lap time last time by, as Baker looks to get the run on the bottom side. Will we go defensive? No, it looks like Balassa will actually let him take the move on the inside line, and he'll get the draft now of the GTE up in front of Facci Ponti in the run to turn number 1. So, the gap between first and second now, about 3 seconds for Kurt Krum to try and hold on to the gap, who also, remember, took that different cycle.
Well, then Kurt Krum, if he can hang on to that lead, it will be a beautiful victory for him to start off the Major Series 2020 season in the GT3 class. And at the time, it's looking like Krum is pretty set to take that win that he needs, because he's got that 3-second gap, and he's been very, very steady in pulling away. He's trying to get around a GTE that he's trying to get around, so some lap traffic for Krum. It isn't very often that you see a GT3 car lapping a car that's in a faster class than him.
Yeah, I agree on that one. Right now, Morgan at this point overall is 51st on the track in the 96 machine. It's been up and down day for him so far. Trevor Bobrovsky has just ducked down to the pit lane once again, it seems, though. No, pardon me, he's run up against the pit exit wall. In fact, in the number 10 car, he lost it in turn number 1.
So we had a couple of incidents then. So Bobrovsky has lost it in turn 1, and Andy Banfield has lost it in the bus stop just moments ago. This is the replay of what happened to Bobrovsky. There's a little bit of a transitioning there between the racing line and the apron, and he lost it on that tiny, tiny transition. That is not a place where you want to be stopped. It's so terrifying, really, to be stopped on the racetrack, but it's such a one-line of blind corner. And then Andy Banfield, the number 3 car, lost it in the bus stop while this was going on as well. Went in too hot, lost the back end, snapped it around, and bounced off the tires.
So an interesting sequence of events in this past few moments or so, with about an hour and 16 minutes on the clock. Let's take a look what happened to Andy Banfield up on your screen. And man, he definitely locked it up there trying to keep it off the tires.
It was a very good attempt, but he just managed to bounce it off. But it's a good thing he did lock it down, because that hit could have been much harder. That is one of the faster parts of the track entering that corner, and we have seen both in sim and IRL very hard hits onto that tire barrier. So it's a good thing that he locked that down as it did and got as minimal damage as he could have.
Indeed, so he went off the racetrack. Another thing I want to note, you might notice right now some of the cars that are running across the track in the backdrop of Banfield is second place. Because of the 4-tire strategy from Facci Ponti to take that stint now, instead of going, say, a triple stint or a double stint now, Slacker is in second spot, still a ways back, though, of the position, should note. So he is right now in second position, the 08 machine specifically, one of the GSRC broadcasters. Right now is way far behind the race leader, but is up in second at the moment.
And there you have the delta between first place in a GTE and second. It's a good 18 seconds. I think it's safe to say that one driver took a longer stop than the other, and that could come back and close back in with pit strategies later on in this race. we are expecting all the drivers in this field to make one more stop at minimum in this race, because there's no way they're going to be able to make it to the end as it is.
Let's head towards P2 for GTE, because again, that's where Stefan Slacker is at the moment. But on the back bumper is Riley Thompson, along with Dallas Pataska saying hello in the class lead by 8 seconds for the prototypes. Gonna break it up for just a split second, but Pataska gets on through, so the fight is on for P2 and the GTEs.
It is Ford versus Ford, and Schlachter giving a bit of a flash of the headlines toward Dallas Pataska. So that it was a very brave move for Pataska to go up the inside of Schlachter in the International Horseshoe, because it got really tight, and I am absolutely stunned that they did not spin each other out through this. Thompson is going to have the advantage with the slipstream as they run on down to the bus stop.
Keep an eye on NASCAR on the run up to turn 1, especially once again. Again, this is for second position on the racetrack in the GTE class. You're following on board with Riley Thompson as they work their way and cycle their way through the bus stop. Dead even runs through the section, and that might be a potential slowdown. Got through the grass with Slacker that time. Looks like he won't have to serve one quite yet, but Thompson does have the slipstream for this section of the racetrack and some space compared to Banfield, who is off in the distance.
So Thompson, he's getting closer and closer with every passing meter. It's not going to be enough, though, to make the move into turn 1. He's just too far away. You can see Schlachter not worried about it, not taking any big defensive line, but Thompson was much later on the brakes and did actually close in a good margin in the first turn of the racetrack. Now as they throttle towards the International Horseshoe, there still will not be the dive. Meanwhile, there is some more GT3 battle going on up front. Henry Bennett just completed the pass from Peter Balassa, and Marcus Niskanen trying to get in the mix as well.
That's just up the road from the battle we've been keeping up with here. So Bennett got through first, that time to the International Horseshoe. Now Niskanen looking to follow on through as well. Defensive line a bit for as Niskanen takes the earlier braking, and here comes the GTE battle for second in the rear view mirrors. As Niskanen takes the bottom side, Balassa takes the defensive line along the double yellow line at the bottom of the banking.
Marcus Niskanen is going to have that advantage, but will they have to let the lap traffic through? That's going to be the question. Niskanen going to go way to the apron and try to make this one work, and he's getting squeezed down by Balassa. This contact, and this big contact at that. Niskanen going to have to bail out of that. That's going to be a slowdown for sure, and that just about ended in catastrophe. More trouble behind them.
And two of those cars in the prototypes nearly ran over the back end of the GTEs. That was Tim Clausen's following on behind, but Dawson Brock that had a bit of a dicey move. They were trying to get on through as well. That's second and third in the class. And now it is side by side with some of the traffic. Will the prototypes make it 3? Yes, they will. A tight entryway as they back off the gas.
Oh, look out!
Balassa got loose.
Oh my goodness, everything is really kicking off here today, or tonight, wherever you want to call it, here in the major series. Balassa very loose, nearly cleaning out Dawson Brock in the prototype as the car swung back to the left. This is just really kicking everything off today. Oh my goodness.
Let's start off this at the bus stop because these guys made door-to-door contact. Niskanen took the slowdown in the end. Keep an eye on the left rear. As you see the run, Balassa just didn't give up the space knowing there was a car underneath. I think he expected him to back off.
Well, I think that too. That's exactly what he was trying to make him back off, and unfortunately Niskanen did not back off. He did the exact opposite. He tried to force the issue, and Balassa was not having that at all. And by the way, those two cars, well, they're back on track right now, and they are nose to tail. So this could end in absolute disaster for both drivers. Niskanen going to be a bit, shall we say, a bit calmer and try the outside into the bus stop, and he's going to let off early. Balassa still covering that inside line.
Still have Joshua Wolf that wants to get on through as well now. Don't forget Adam Facciponti also trying to get on through. They'll stay on the left side of the racetrack for the faster class cars. Yeah, this is getting too dicey, I think, for some of their liking here, but you can see Niskanen. He's got a run, but is pinched right behind the fellow class, the different class member. He'll try and fall off that Chipanti's draft as Balassa tries to not lose too much time on the bottom side of the racetrack. Now he'll take a defensive line as the GTE still wants to get through.
Balasso's really compromising himself right here by not letting Facciponti through. He's lost a lot of time to Niskanen. Niskanen on the inside trying to capitalize, and he is going to do that side by side of the International Horseshoe. Balassa manages to clear Niskanen, and now Niskanen's going to have to yield to Jacques Zhu in the 34 machine's BMW as he goes on his way through. Andy Banfield looking to get his way through behind this group as well.
And at some point, something's got to give here, you would have to think here, because now they've got more of the GTEs coming through the field. This is getting very, very intense. And Balassa nearly making contact with the GTE this time and forces the bubble this time from the 34.
Huge tank slap from Joe as they exited the oval and just could not correct it. It was a huge left, right, and the car ended up hooking. Good thing that car hooked left and down in the apron, not right, back up to take out the two battling cars. So things are definitely heating up, and one thing to note as well as we looked at the replay, oh no, Balassa runs wide through the chicane, and that's going to be a slowdown for sure. Niskanen goes through onto the oval in 3 and 4.
You see the spin up on your screen. Let's see if we can stick with this to get to Balassa up the road, because you'll see where that slowdown you're referring to is in the bus stop for the 29 machine. You see it as he runs across the billboards, and you see right about here, tries to carry too much speed, hooks the back end, and there goes the spots as he swings it through the grass.
I was just about to mention that behind this battle, you got your battle for 6th place as well in the prototypes that was starting to come on up, but that ended up not happening at all as we had that incident occur, of course, to cut that fight off. Gabriel Roos for Kinetic Europe is down and into the pits for what might be his second to last stop of the day. I'm not sure if they can make it, though.
Nah.
If they stop now for a full tank, they're going to need to make another stop.
Yeah, they're going to have to make another stop at that point. Roos, though, taking a 19-second stop. So it looks like that it's going to be an extra stop compared to the rest of the field today for the Daytona prototypes in the field. We also seen Darren Mintz also come down to get some more fuel into the race car. So they have about an hour and 6 minutes and 34 seconds on the clock. Your thoughts on the racing so far, Nolan?
Well, it's definitely been intense. We had a little bit of a lull in the action when we got about 45 minutes to an hour in, and now everything is beginning to ramp back up again as the traffic begins to condense.
Your thoughts, Connery?
This has been very, very intriguing. This is a very strategic race, and this is what we're used to seeing. At draft circuits such as this, such as Monza, as well as another big one where it's less the battle for the track position and more the battle inside the pit stop cycles here. So once we get towards the end of this race, you'll see a lot of drivers getting themselves shuffled into different positions, maybe even race-winning positions for some of them. But of course, especially in your GT class, those with the fresher tires at the end of the race might be able to do something coming through the infield section as well. So I can't wait to see how this one finishes.
I'm curious to see how this is going to finish off as well, because it's getting very intense. One of the more intense road course races we've seen so far in 2020. Let's take a look at the top 8 in each of your classes as we get ready for the start of the pit window for the prototypes once again. They have Dallas Pataska in the lead by 9 seconds. Tim Claessens is in second with Dawson Brock in third. Joshua Wolf is in the 4th position. He started in 8th. Ludwig Budikos up to 5th with Tessier up in the 6th position. 7th sees Velarde and Richie Hearn from 14th up to 8th spot. Rounds out the top 8 for the prototypes. Let's take a look next at your GTE class, where David Barriclough is in a commanding lead by more than 20 plus seconds over Stefan Schlacker up on the racetrack. Riley Thompson's in 3rd. Adam Facciponti is in the 4th position. Jacques Zhou is in the 5th spot despite the spin, with Fabrice quietly in the 6th position. 7th and 8th seen Shane Norton and Christopher Ems rounding out the top 8 in that class. Then, in the GT3s, it is Kirk Crum who is up at the front of that class still. He's actually gained ground on David H. Baker in the past few laps or so. He's now up by 4+ seconds over him, Henry Bennett, and Marcus Niskanen rounding out the top 4 positions. Peter Balassa is in 5th spot still with Jens Kaiser quietly inside the top 6. Eric Mick is in 7th with Enako Hernandez-Rose rounding out the 8 drivers in the top 8 at the GT3 class today. That's a look at your rundown for the top 8 of each of the classes so far here as we approach the 1 hour to go mark and the start of some of the pit windows for some of these teams today. And Nolan right now at this point, what do you think is going through the head of Kirk Crum, because he's actually now up to 5 seconds the gap?
Well, that is going to be the big question, is with Kirk Crum. Again, you know, you said the 5-second gap for Crum. He's got to be thinking he's in a pretty comfortable position at the moment. It'll be interesting to see if he'll be able to hang on to that lead, though, because he still has a stop or 2 left to go. So it'll be interesting to see what the strategy could play into things.
Let's follow along with the RaceSpot fan immersion with that machine right now. You're watching the iRacing Esports Network and RaceSpot TV for the Major Series European region and the Daytona 2.4. Just as we went to RaceSpot fan immersion, a stack-up happened into the International Horseshoe, where Rene Aurora was hit from the back end, entering the corner as a magnitude of traffic tried to get through. It caused a massive stack-up, involving 3+ cars sent off into the grass and stopped in the middle of the corner here, Nolan.
And there you have it. That was a Mercedes that punted the BMW around, and then a Porsche finished off Prototypes, having to slam to a stop. Oh, he collected one of the Merc cars from Unorthodox as the car backed up across the racetrack. So that is not a place you want to be stopped. And you saw the Prototype tried to get through. The BMW tried to back it up and didn't realize that the Merc was going to try to find its way through. That was probably one of the worst possible scenarios for him right there.
Yeah, that is not a great situation. We'll take another look at this. You can see so many cars were looking to get on by that situation in terms of the traffic. And that collected one of the top 8 drivers we had just mentioned, mind you, in the GT3 class, who was just looking to get on by as that was all coming around and ended up getting collected towards the end of that incident.
Yeah, so it's very unfortunate to see such a thing happen. And there you see, there's the dive from the Mercedes, and I have to say, that was a bit of a reckless dive from that Mercedes up the inside of the BMW, then comes right back up, and it was one of the Kinetic Racing Mercedes, not one of the UDOX Mercedes that got collected in that crash, and the Beamer had to stay still on that track for a good bit of time before he was able to get clear. But man, what a scary incident. And one of the horses, oh, big crash. We just had a car go hard at the outside wall at the bus stop. The 21 machine, Mike Gunn, just lost the back end and pancaked the outside barriers on the exit of the bus stop chicane, and that car is junked.
Take a look at this one on the RaceSpot replay. And it looked like a little bit too much grass on the final portion of the bus stop caused that.
Yep, a little bit too much. Right there it is. And watch, there's the hook, and bam! Hard into the outside barriers. That has got to take hit of the race right there for, my God, for the Hanson Brothers Racing Machine. A prototype was on its way through, but unlike our last incident, it was not caused by lap traffic today, just taking a bit too much of the grass. And watch the wheel, there was just nothing he could do. You saw that car going around, it was just a passenger at that point.
Yeah, nothing he can do in that type of situation. And this is just all happening as the pit window opens up for not just some of the prototype drivers, but as well some of the fellow class members for the GTs. We have Gaunt coming out of the pit lane just now with this fast repair, but we also had some of the drivers in the GTEs duck down to the lane in the past little while or so, just as that was happening. So pit stops are underway across the field with under an hour to go.
And meanwhile, we got another fierce fight in your GTE class. Liam Sheen versus Andy Banfield. That pass was just completed around the outside of turn number 1. Banfield struggled to hang on as Liam Sheen threw it up the inside. There was a lockup from Banfield, and they managed to squeak their way through it. That is a fierce fight for position right now. And all the while, you got traffic still trying to work its way through behind them.
It's a bit down the running order, but every point counts in the overall complexion of things, to say the least. And Liam Sheen having a pretty decent day so far in the 63 machine, trying to be getting as high as he can in the field.
And like you said, every spot counts, every point counts. We've seen championships in the past come down to the final point, just 1 point, so every spot you can get matters. Sheen has got that advantage as they're on the brace for the bus stop chicane. This might be down to see if he can get the run off, but it doesn't look like he did. It was a terrible run through the bus stop chicane for Liam Sheen, who's actually going to move aside to let Marcus Niskanen's Mercedes through on the inside.
So letting the faster traffic on through, knowing that situation with Niskanen. Niskanen right now is the 4th place car in his class, but is already still a ways back of the class lead for the GT3 class. As they work their way into turn number 1 once again here. Still, we have pit stop. Fabrice just ducked down this time by the 836 machine. He's coming down for what is expected to be their last stop of the day.
So Undis Puticus as well, coming out from Kinetic Europe. It's most likely going to be their last stop of the day as well. So, Peter Vostrel taking a slide in the BMW as they entered the oval. Somehow hung on to the car and saved it after locking the brakes down. But it was a good save at that.
Let's take a look at this one. As you can see, there's a prototype to the inside, and right there just lost the back traction.
Now, it doesn't take much at that section of the track. It is deceptively loose. It is so easy for the car to snap around on you on the exit. We saw the bobbles in the middle of the shootout through some of the cars they went through. And it's just what happened to him because he didn't manage to correct that bobble. He went all the way around. It is a very bumpy part of the track there, which is why it's so easy for the cars to get spun around. Dallas Pataska, he's now out of the pits as well from his final stop of the day, and he has lost the race lead in doing so.
Indeed. And you see pit stop off and away. Dallas Pataska right into the middle of a battle with someone yet to get into the cycle so far. And of course, right now, this is to keep in mind that they have to make sure they get around the racetrack cleanly and quickly. Down to 4th does go to Pataska for the time being, but again, he just did take that pit stop for the time being. That is Vavarde. That is behind him, who is yet to take a second pit stop.
And Tim Clausen was the first driver that was in the lead behind Pataska. I mean, now it is going to be Clausen's that is up and into the lead. This is your battle for second place. Adam Fittipaldi and Riley Thompson. That gap is closed and is now sitting at just about 0.4 of a second. So this is a fight that could heat up. Tim Clausen has just entered pit lane as well, and right behind him, Dawson Brock is following suit. So things are beginning to heat up, and it'll be a question of can they get off pit lane before Pataska can come around. Joshua Wolf, you'll see entering the pit lane in the background.
See them and on your screen right now for their scheduled stop. Pataska took a 19-second pit stop last time, 25 seconds for Valverde last time by, 20 seconds for Darren Mintz for comparison's sake. Valverde is also ducking down this time by to join them. While Dallas Pataska with his massive lead, looking to continue to make it grow, passes by them like they're sitting still because, well, they are in the pit boxes still for at least another 5+ seconds.
And Tim Kloss is going to be the first driver off of pit road. Kind of expected this to be the case. Dawson Brock will be right behind him. And they're going to be coming out right amidst a whole bunch of traffic. So this could get very dicey because these guys are coming out from a pit stop and they're right in the midst of traffic. And that is never something that you want to be caught in.
Indeed, and while these drivers continue to cycle out and try and get a chance to breathe, I'd like to remind you that today's round does support charity, the Cure LGMD2I. That is curelgmd2i.com, which is the limb girdle muscular dystrophy type 2I. It is a progressively debilitating disease caused by weakness and muscle wasting, mainly in the shoulder and hip areas. This congestional disease is a rare form of muscular dystrophy. Over time, this excessive muscle wasting can result in cardiovascular, respiratory, and overall physical complications, typically beginning in early adolescence. They are hopeful that with the groundbreaking work being done with gene therapy, drug screenings, and clinical trials, successful treatment will halt the progression of LGMD2I. This week, 40 drivers so far have taken a second qualifying run, with 50% of those proceeds going to help this great cause. Once again, to donate yourself, go to curelgmd2i.com. And very good charitable actions being brought along by the Major Series this round to start the season.
Absolutely, it's always good to be seeing charities getting involved, and you know, the donations, they never have to be big. You know, it can be as small as $1 sometimes, but you know what? Every penny counts towards these charities. Oh boy, big block there from that Daytona prototype. But you know, every penny counts when it comes to these charities. So it's just so good to see that so many drivers throughout this field have been donating towards such a good cause.
Absolutely, and you see right now still, Tim Kloss is still in second position after all the pit stops for the prototypes here. But how does the strategy look is going to be the main question. The strategies have been all over the place for the rest of the classes because of the flexibility today. Drivers need to be very flexible with traffic management now, fourth on back meanwhile, because, well, it's a hornet's nest. Wolf trying to get on through, Ruse boxed in. They also have Tessier, who is now in the conversation for the top 5.
And remember, this is a fight that we've seen come to blows previously in this race, and it could very well come to blows again. We're now in the final hour of the Daytona 2.4. The skies are now completely pitch dark as we are racing under the lights at Daytona. Gabriel Roos trying to cut the chicane as much as he possibly can without getting those slowdowns, while Tessier continues to try to find a way to work his way up from behind.
You can see him trying to follow on the draft so he has a shot at the position. Still trying to dart their way through some of the traffic, including Fat Chipanti at the moment. He cycled to second, but is currently, remember, on the fresher tires, faster than the leader, but sacrificed the time. Now driving on by in the dive into the corner. That time, Wolf able to hold on to the position. Fifth is still trying to go up for grabs, though. Tessier still kind of trying to keep within reach.
He's trying to keep within reach, but he might have to rely on the oval to keep him within that reach. It's Gabriel Roos. He's going to have to rely on that slipstream from the oval as well. There's just no way he's going to realistically be able to reel him in when it comes to this road course section. It's just too tight. And the draft, when it comes to these prototypes, you just don't get enough of it. They're just too fast. Realistically, to be able to draft probably in the oval, you have to rely that you have a better entry / mid corner / exit speed. And now he might get better exit speed. Oh, a huge bite of oversteer for Wolf has just reeled him right into Gabriel Roos.
Wolf now will play the defensive line again as they get around the lap traffic. This might set up an opportunity as Peter Vostro moving out and out of the way. Check up by Ruse as they go into the bus stop once again. This is allowing Tessier now to get back in the conversation with the slipstream once more as Wolf clips the grass a little bit, this time into NASCAR 3 and 4.
You know what I think what Bruce is actually doing here is he's actually making sure that he doesn't pass Wolf before they get to the chicane, because he realizes that if he does, he can get it back here in 3 and 4, because look, here's going to be the move. There it is, around the outside. It's going to clear before they even get to turn number 1. Bruce is going to be door-to-door on the outside line. Now it's going to be just fender-to-fender. That triangle will work in Wolf's favor. Side-by-side, door-to-door to turn number 1. It's going to get tight here, and Wolf, another bite of oversteer, corrects it before he can oversteer up, and into Ruse. Ruse cuts turn 2A a bit tight, and he's going to try to dive up the inside, and it won't be enough, and Wolf hangs on by the skin of his teeth.
He's holding on the edge of his chinny chin, to say the least, as this is now still scrapping on forward. We did see Mintz have a bit of trouble and lose some spots to Pudiquist, by the way, a couple 10 seconds back. We also see pit stops underway for Riley Thompson. So, some of the GTEs coming in for what is looking like their final scheduled stop to the races.
It should be their final scheduled stop. We've got 48 minutes to go, and that's definitely within the fuel wood if you got a full tank. So Thompson, this will be his final stop of the day, and now Roos and that other spot for Wolf, they have now caught another fierce battle between Miguel Angel Salido Sanchez and Grande Fabrice, which is going to check up Alain Tessier and effectively put him out of contention for that fourth place. And Josh Wolf
car off in the wall.
Big into the wall.
That is Sanchez, who ended up taking too much of the grass, it appeared that time. At the final part of the bus stop, he shot hard to the right, similar situation we've seen before in this race.
And that really hurts to see, and while that replay is going on, those two prototypes still side by side. Gonna take a minute to look back at what happened here. The pressure must have just gotten to Sanchez. Took a bit too much grass in. That's almost identical to what we saw one of our other GTE cars do in one of the Porsches just a few laps ago. That's actually it's actually identical to what happened there. It took too much grass, was just a passenger into the wall.
And nothing he can do again. Second time we've seen that once again. And look, if I'm looking correctly, Schlacker just took a third stop for 7.5 seconds, so something happening with the 08 machine. That will lose them a ton of time and take them out of the conversation for the GTE top 10 potentially.
I wonder if maybe he did not get enough fuel into the car to make it to the end.
I'm wondering that potentially as well. You see the bottom ticker, about 7 seconds on that last stop. He had taken service before, I believe. So, interesting situation now for them.
Very much so. So Stefan Schlachter is going to have a bit of an interesting time to the end of this race. I definitely don't know what went on there. I'm kind of interested, Connery, on what your thoughts are on what just happened.
Yeah, that's a weird one. Usually when we see sort of unscheduled stops like that, you know, speeding off of pit exit, you have to come back in and get a 15-second penalty served. But, you know, that was 7 seconds stationary on the lane, so I'm not entirely sure what's going on there. Meanwhile, you have Joshua Wolf and Gabriel Roos still close as ever. There's a Ferrari that almost went off directly ahead of them. In fact, there's two Ferraris going to go side by side coming through this first sector. That might be a bit of a cause for concern from Wolf from Roos. They're going to have to stack up here behind those two GT cars, but they'll have to make their way by on the inside here. So Wolf has actually done a very good job here defensively to hold on to that P4. Bruce able to squeak his way through on one of the Ferraris, but the thing is, for Joshua Wolf, he has no friends around right now. He has no drafting partner. Well, he does kind of, well, have a couple of cars maybe down the road that he can just get slipstream off of momentarily, but no one of his own class. So he's still particularly vulnerable at this stage, but just because Gabriel Roos has a good opportunity to get past doesn't mean that Roos has the opportunity to break away.
Yeah, absolutely right now, and you're seeing them go down the back straightaway, for example. You can see again, even if you get through the first part of the infield well, yes, it's a way to break away, but with such the short distance, there's not that chance to exactly try and break the slipstream today. Right now, if you've got a drafting partner, you're likely seeing them the rest of the way, and Gabriel Ruse is now Wolf's drafting partner for the next 44 plus minutes potentially here.
Yeah, absolutely. You'd have to hope you can lose him in the pit cycle. And with all the pit cycles being complete, though, that's not going to be happening. Gabriel Ruse, like, no.
And right now, at the same time here, Connery, you got to remember, fuel might be still a big worry for some of these cars, too. Indeed, trouble for Bobrovsky, though. The 12th place car in the class. He went around in the International Horseshoe just moments ago in the 10 car, and it looks like it was one of the GTEs that was forced to stop as well. Pardon me, one of the Profel prototypes, and Travis Henderson. Again, that was in the International Horseshoe this past time by for those cars. So we keep on following along, though, at the moment with the battle up on your screen.
So, some more difficulties in the International Horseshoe. And of course, if you have an incident in the horseshoes, it's very difficult.
Oh, Rose is in.
Good. Hello to Gabriel Ruse, who is down to pit road. This would be the opportune moment to buff out that little dent in that fender. And that, if he does elect to fix that damage, it could actually be what helps Joshua Wolf to break away from his drafting partner. But Wolf still out on the circuit.
Does have a fast repair available, doesn't elect to use it though. You don't see that fender being fixed. Electing to stay the way it is for the time being to get to the finish. This is to try and make it to the checker flag on the fuel. So electing to take the stop a little bit earlier, it seems this time, to make it 42 minutes to the checker flag, about 27 laps.
So the interesting pit call goes out from Gabriel Ruse, and it was only a 19.9 second stop. So just underneath 20 seconds for Gabriel Ruse. Now the question will be, because correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe Wolf has come in for his last stop. So when is he going to come down if he hasn't already?
Good question here at this point, and now this is where the openness of the strategy is going to come into play now for some of these cars. Look, as now we're taking a look at Joshua Wolf, for example. At this point, does he elect to come down or does he try and stretch it here? But he should be okay in this situation. There is only 7 laps on the stint.
Very true. So in that case, Joshua Wolf might have 4th place all sealed up for him. It'll be interesting to see how Wolf will manage things as time goes on. He definitely was not the one that was conserving fuel. That honor, I guess you could say, would go to his drafting partner, which is now gone in Bruce. So it'll be interesting to see what Wolf will be able to make it, if he'll be able to hang on to 4th place. Because if he's got 7 laps on the stint and he doesn't come down, it might be close. Alex Tessier is now into the pits.
Also into the pits, David Barriclow, the leader for the GTEs. He is also elected to pit, so Facci Ponti going to pass on by 25 plus seconds. Is this going to be just fuel only, or is it going to be tires? It's going to be fuel. So, a triple stint of the tires for Barriclow.
Very interesting indeed. So, triple stint for Barriclow. That is a risky move at this point. We did talk, top of the broadcast, about pit strategies, how, you know, some teams might try it. It is risky, though.
It does have its risk, yes, but at this point, it is with how cold the track is here today, Nolan, a risk that for a lot of teams might be worth to tape. And a typical strategy, in fact, potentially we might see next week in the 24-hour event. You see that right now, 70 degrees Fahrenheit. The track temp has stayed around that mark all race, so there hasn't been too much variance in that part, other than the fact that there's more rubber on the track.
Indeed. And I think the question, at least when it comes to Barriclow, is going to be, yes, he didn't do the triple stint, but for the car behind him that did, is the benefit, worth it? How much time would you actually gain on fresh tires compared to somebody that's on the triple stint? Can you reel in that time and capitalize? Because even if it's more than a second, you might argue it could potentially be worth it. We're going to have to see, though, if it is, because it is a risky call late in the race, and we'll have to see if Adam Fittipaldi is going to be looking to do the same thing.
Remember, Fittipaldi took tires on his last stop. This time, he dives it on into the pit lane inside the white cone to make it inside the stripe. So we'll see if he ends up going on the jacks. Remember again, took tires on pit stop number 1 and sacrificed a ton of time. He was with Barriclow before that.
And Barriclow is going to go on the outside and will allow him to go back up and into the lead for the GTE class without much difficulties at all. And Fittipaldi still sitting in the pit lane there, and it is a decently long stop for Adam, to say the least. The car is not on the jacks, but it was a 27-second stop. Compared to some of the other cars that only had the 19.9 second stop, it makes you wonder if maybe you put too much fuel in the car and lost out on too much time.
I mean, Barriclow put more fuel in the car than he did, to be honest, though. That's the thing. He's still going to be in second, as Shane Norton still has to pit in front of him, but it's still the matter of one thing. Can he find a way to close up 24 seconds on the track?
That is actually a fair point.
Connery?
Yeah, he actually lost out the position to Riley Thompson here, because Riley Thompson, there we go through on the GT3 car. Riley Thompson appeared around about 6 laps ago, so he was one of the early stoppers here for this final stint. So Fittipaldi, this will end up being a battle for P2 once Shane Norton comes down on towards the lane. But Riley Thompson's done a good job here through this final pit stop cycle to get himself into the position that he's in right now. I also have to say, looking at the iRating of these guys, Riley Thompson, he's around about 4K, but Adam Fittipaldi, I actually have a higher iRating than him. He's on 1,362, so doing a good job.
As Lorenzo Bonner said, though, iRacing isn't exactly the top indicator of talent. Some drivers prefer to run in the league circuit, some drivers run a lot of official races, some drivers run a balance of both.
Yeah, and that is entirely understandable. There are a lot of guys, especially the ones I know from the British sim racing side of things, where they literally just run in the UK leagues, and that is pretty much it. They don't really do any official stuff. So even though they're very, very quick, some of them still have D licenses.
Interesting, but either way, Riley Thompson currently holding on to the position now, and I'm curious to see if Adam can now try and put up the fight. This is going to take a little bit of time, though. They also do have the car of Eric Mick in between them for the time being.
Well, and one thing that I was kind of thinking as well, what if Barriclow put less fuel in the car, or more fuel in the car, but he's going to be probably conserving a bit more because it was, of course, earlier. And then you saw Fittipaldi put more into the car, but he can actually push harder throughout this race. So that could be the question as well. We could see a driver up front starting to conserve a bit more, while one driver behind is beginning to push a bit more as well.
Connery, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a really interesting predicament inside of this class, and that's what we love to see with the different strategies coming to fruition inside the final couple of moments of this race. But for me, at least, Barriclow has this one on lockdown, and we can just see the gap between himself and...
Fittipaldi just went off the racetrack into the tire barrier.
Dear.
He is now stopped along the edge of the barrier. This was just in front of Mick, and Another driver overrunning the bus stop.
Oh, dearie me. That is not what you want to see. He was lapping one of the Audis, and there was no contact, but just oversteered on the entry and locked it down, but again, nothing he could do, and went big into the barriers, and he is going to be elected to pit this time. So Facciponti, well, he might have just thrown away a top 5 finish with that today.
That is so unfortunate. I believe he had the faster pair available still, but that will sacrifice a ton of time on the racetrack. Stopped in the stall, might have accidentally taken it on another pit stop, so his engine has just been shut off, and as he'll fall down the pylon. Wow. And it's so easy to forget about that too, because you take a pit stop, you forget to uncheck it, you lose it forever.
Oh yeah, you can't get it back. You really just can't. Darwin Mines is now down and into the pit lane, and he is going to be coming down for his last stop, and this will most likely be a splash and dash. There goes Facciponti back out of the pits, so he's certainly not down and out. He's going to continue to fight through the final half hour of the race, so props to him. Things are beginning to pick up as things go on. P4 in your GT3 class is heating up. Peter Balassa was just passed by Jens Kaiser as they enter the bus stop chicane.
Looking at up on your screen now, Balassa tried that different strategy before, had been as high as second position, but has been falling a little bit further back in the 144.7s at the moment. Compare that to Kaiser in the 144.2s. So the pace just hasn't been there for Balassa. He is in the draft, but it's just right now been a fight to hold on to a good finish here to start the season.
It really has, and this is a pretty good fight for P4. We haven't really checked in on Balassa too much, but you remember, he was trying to work a bit more difficult with trying to keep those spots. He was in a pretty fierce fight with Marcus Niskanen in the early stages of the race and forced Niskanen to take evasive action throughout the chicane. And right now, he's trying to run back down Jens Kaiser.
Indeed, the fight is still on here. Let's go on board with this car and take a listen in. You're watching RaceSpot TV and the iRacing Esports Network for the Major Series Daytona 2.4 to start the European region season. Welcome back, everyone, as you've been following along with Balassa's car. As you might have noticed just a second ago, he's up the running order a little bit. That's because some other cars have just pit. Kaiser has just ducked down for his final scheduled stop. Balassa yet to do so, however. So drivers are coming down in the lead for their final scheduled stops in the class. Bennett, Niskanen also looking to still make their final stops in the next couple laps or so as they reach the end of the field takes, Nolan.
So the final stops are going to be underway with just under 30 minutes left to go. And it is going to be crunch time after that. And that is when we're going to be seeing most of the drivers pushing all out right through to the end of the race.
Who are some of the teams you've been keeping an eye on as this race has progressed? Because it's been an entertaining one, to say the least, especially in the battles for the edge of the top 5, such as this one.
Oh, it certainly has. You know, the Hansen brothers with Karlin Marzov, he's been having a decent run for himself today. It's been a very intense run for him as well, but he's made up 4 spots and he's up into 5th place in your GTE class. Things are, it is close. It's a tight battle all the way around the racetrack for so many different positions. And sometimes when a battle begins, it can just reel back in, and this is one of those battles we like that is. It's now going to be Grande Fabrice that will try to threaten Marzov, and they are going to go 3 wide down the back straightaway, trying to work their way around this. A prototype zigzags way through. We have a car sideways up front. It's Vostrel again into the grass, this time in the bus stop, and it was again an incident of his own making, lost the back end on the entry, and that caused cars to go evasive all throughout the bus stop as well.
Let's take a look at what happened to him up on your screen. Vostrel just lost the back end in the first part of the bus stop, and in good racecraft to power it off, to get it off the racing line, to prevent any possible stack up in that line, middle portion of the bus stop.
Vostrel has really not had this race go his way. He has been struggling oh so much throughout this race, and it's got to be what, the 3rd spin he's had now. Like, this is he's having some serious trouble with the car control, and I don't know if it's the setup or if it's some kind of damage that we're not seeing or what, but you know, that car, it has not gone his way today.
By the way, more pit stops have taken place in the class. Peter Balassa has ducked down for his service. Kurt Crum, remember, has, but Henry Bennett is also now within range of Crum's car. So the fight is on for the net race lead in the GT3 class.
This is going to get real interesting. Henry Bennett hard on the heels of Kurt Crum. And it's going to be a hard fight between Bennett and Crum. Bennett has got a massive run on Crum down the front straightaway. He's reeled in a 7/10 gap from the start of the oval to under a quarter of a second by the time they reach turn number 1. I think Bennett is definitely pushing all out. Crum might be backing off a little bit.
Might be a little bit to make sure he can make it on the fuel, but Niskanen just came out of the pit boxes. He'll come out behind this fight as here comes lead lap traffic for Shane Norton. One of the GTEs breaks it up for the time being, but this is still, I think, a fight we might have to keep an eye on for the next 25 plus minutes.
It certainly is. It's definitely closed on in. Now with that GTE between these 2 cars, we might see a little bit of a split unless Shane Norton tries to dive up the inside of Crum in the run back onto the oval. He's not going to do so. So Bennett is going to be able to try to maybe hook it tight, not quite able to. He's going to have to try to reel in that gap again, but it is one big gap that he's going to have to fight for.
Yeah, but with the slipstream, that might be something you might be able to reel in. It's just going to take the timing of traffic as well in some of the road course portions of the racetrack today. Try and see if he can get enough time. 24 minutes up on the clock for Henry Bennett as the prototype just zoomed on by in Herm.
And Dallas Pataska, we've just heard, is just now coming off of pit lane. So Pataska just completed his final stop of the day. And right behind him, Michael Lane in another prototype has just spun it in the International Horseshoe.
Michael Lane, you see him taking the shortcut, in fact, where we see some of the rallycross cars. There was another spin in the backdrop on the other end of the road course involving one of the Hansen's brothers cars. This one ends up taking a drift and having to go off in the grass to get off the racing line. I'm curious to see what happened in the backdrop there, because I believe we've seen two cars spinning out there for a second, if I looked right.
Yeah, I saw at least two cars sideways and one stop. There you saw the headlights facing the wrong way. There was two, maybe three cars caught up in that one. So if we could get a shot of what happened further up front, that's what I think we're all curious about at this point in time. Because there was something big that happened further up the road.
Something interesting there. I'm not sure if I've seen that correctly there, but either way, the prototype was off and away in that situation. But to say the least, let's go back up towards the fighting as that's going on right now. Try and see what happened with the other cars if we can, but right now, Kurt Crum is still in that class lead. Right now, Dallas Pataska leads his class. The GTE class, David Barraclough is up in front. And I believe this might be... Let's take a look at this race replay as we take a look at one shot here involving one of the Kinetic Racing cars here.
So this is one of the Kinetic cars, and I'm not sure if we'll be seeing what happened at the exit of that oval, but we'll have to get a better look to see what in the world happened to bring out, or to put out that second incident. It might be a bit of a journey here as we take a scroll on through the replays to hunt this down.
I believe we might have to go to the racing action, so let's focus on what's going on the racetrack for the time being, because there's still 22 minutes on the clock. And the gap between Bennett and Crum still separated out. You look at Barraclough, you look back to the battle rather here up on your screen, as, my goodness, that's a ton of traffic.
For Crum and Bennett, and again, that gap, it has closed in with the ton of traffic ahead of them, so this could feature up to be an interesting fight. Bennett doesn't have a lot of traffic behind him anymore. He does have David Baker that's hot on these drivers' heels as well, trying to find a way through. We could find ourselves in a very tight scrap for the lead here by the time we get to the end of this race.
Remember, Crum took the different strategy to start the first pit stop window, took the race lead and pulled away by a decent margin. Bennett closed it in this second stint. David H. Baker as well, as they're now just within the draft. They also have Andreas Robertson interclass traffic, but with Nicholas Skates and a few other drivers just up the road in this situation. They look to try and lap them, and that could get very tight and a little bit messy in the International Horseshoe this upcoming time by, if time estimates serve right.
Indeed, so things will have to wait and see how they played out. It looks like Bennett might be just a little bit better on the road course. And right now, Crum is able to pull that gap because he's using the toe from Andreas Robertson ahead of him to help him break away from Bennett's toe. Bennett is just trying at this point to close that gap in. It is slowly closing. It's under a second, so he still has that draft. And here where we're going to see who's really better on the road course.
Times lost. This is prior to the most recent lap. Half a second was gained by Bennett with the help of some of the draft, and now they're starting to get lined up behind the interclass traffic. Now at this point, how do you handle this if you're some of these cars? Do you try and move out of the way quickly, or do you try and keep it safe? Because here's the main thing, it is the lead car's job to make the pass to get by lap traffic.
That's very true. I'd say stay your racing line and let the leaders try to find their way through. You know, in the end, it is up to Crum to try to find his way past Robertson. And if you're constantly going offline, it can be very unpredictable. But with that, remember, we just saw Crum get a little held up, and that has put Bennett right on his heels and trying to reel him in. Robertson goes up high to let the lap traffic through on the bottom.
Dawson Brock just pit this time by in the prototypes. So that is going to be one of the cars they might reach on by. You see them up on your screen now in the Midwest region machine. Off and away. Still cycling to about third though. A decent run for Dawson Brock. So that prototype has been one of the drivers that have been looking really well driven today.
Indeed, very well driven, and he's going to be trying to work on it still. Bennett going to go by Robertson on the inside of the track, and after they get by Nicholas Skeets ahead of them, they will be able to just run away with this and hopefully try to pounce on the race. They've got one car sideways. It's a prototype. Daniel Sharp ahead of them. That was a prototype that just spun it around on the entry. And there was another case of just loose on his own. It looked like he might have been caught off guard by a Ferrari that was just ahead of him.
Thought that was going to be near disaster for a second there, but you can see it up on your screen now. Talk us through what happened here.
You see, there's the Ferrari that the prototype was about to lap on the inside. Here comes that prototype as it throttles up towards turn number 1 and right. Went in with too much speed, actually. Locked it up by just a little bit, went straight. Tried to turn it in, but, you know, when the wheels lock up and you're trying to turn it and you don't have the brakes, that's not a good idea. It's just going to get away from you so quickly, and that's what happened there.
Unfortunate for them, but right now to note, the traffic is cleared up for now, but Crum has broken a bit of the toe for now. He has been able to pull away just a little bit at the edge of the draft of Henry Bennett. Bennett has gained the past 2 laps, but that might change this lap since the distance is pretty high, and Travis Henderson just had to pass by the second place car. That's the car that just wedged its way into the scoring pylon to break things up. So it's going to be curious to see, is there going to be enough time? There is 17 minutes on the clock, 12 estimated laps to go for the prototypes, for example. 11 to go for the GT3.
It's going to be an interesting fight so far. It looks to be a bit more split up. But Baker is looking to move himself higher onto the podium steps and up into the second tallest step that you can get to when he gets around to Henry Bennett. Bennett still trying to close it on in to Kurt Crum. And Crum, he's got to be pushing hard at this point. One car around, it is Ty Cavett. And there's another prototype that's missing its headlights and its engine cover. Huge incident. Holy cow. Huge leap for one of the prototypes in the bus stop.
That was for Vrosky, I believe that was. Yeah, that was the 10 car. And trying to avoid our prototype locking up and making huge contact with Kevith to go around. So that is a big incident, to say the very least, on the circuit. My goodness.
Yeah, Kvet just locked up and spun it, and he stopped right on the racing line. And when you're in the chicane, your line is basically dictated from the moment you start to turn in. You'll see this from Vrosky. Look at this. He was in the smoke. He couldn't even see where he was. There was nothing Vrosky could do there. That's just bad luck.
That's horrible luck. In fact, now let's take another look from the back wing.
So from the rear wing of Vrosky, you'll see just how thick the smoke is. And keep in mind, this is what the drivers are seeing similar stuff out of the windscreen. And you'll see, where do you see where the prototype is in the midst of all of that? You just can't.
Yeah, it's just almost a guessing game, almost like in that situation. Connor, your thoughts on this incident?
Yeah, that's a really, really tough one there for Wachowski. You can't really predict anything that's going to happen in there. It's just an absolute passenger, and you have to feel bad for him. It's not been the greatest of races for him today, and Fritz, well, he's come down towards the pit lane, obviously, to get the fast repair, which is why he now has a front end to that number 10 car. But yeah, that is almost impossible to avoid there for Vorovsky. It's just one of those things that does tend to happen in motorsport sometimes, and he's just got to take that one on the chin. Like I said, not being the greatest of races, maybe look to the next couple of rounds to try and recover things somewhat.
That car in 14th position at the moment here. Only about 14 minutes or so to go, and mind you too, Second and third now for the GT3s is up for grabs here, Nolan.
Yes, absolutely. The third place battle is going to be on the GT3's. Baker is going to be trying to hold off against Bennett, and it looks like Baker actually passed David Baker on this lap. It'd have to be, because it hasn't updated on my own timing screens yet, but Baker has just gone through on Henry Bennett to take second place.
He's on an absolute charge, though, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. That car has been absolutely flying throughout the past 15 minutes ever since he completed that final pit stop.
And now it comes the question, can he get himself the move he needs to, because he is gaining the time up on the board, and you see he is just in the slipstream. We know how effective that can be. Now becomes the question, what do you do if you're Kurt Krum, knowing there's a fast car coming in wanting the lead?
Well, you got to defend big. That was not the time to show any kind of mercy. We're in the final 13 minutes of what's been a 2-hour, 25-minute race so far. He is definitely not going to be wanting to give any kind of ground whatsoever. Krum is going to be looking to take that lead.
Still going to keep an eye on this once more. One of the most exciting battles on the racetrack. They do have the traffic up in front of Pudakus that wants to get on through. That might cost Krum a bit of time. Krum having to take a bit of a defensive line. And going now as he lets on go, and there's another car around. Henderson went around once more that they'll also have to deal with as he comes back onto the apron underneath these drivers.
Oh, this could get antsy here as Henderson comes right back up in front of Krum. This is actually what Krum needs, though, because he gets that extra bit of a tilt from the draft. We're just down this little bit of a straightaway, and Baker, there's nothing he can do about that.
Yeah, absolutely right now, as he does have Bennett to work with, but he also has his talent to work with. Oh, no! Baker's engine is done! My goodness!
That is the exact way we did not want the fight to end. That actually hurt. My heart hurts from that.
He had been the dominant driver before the pit stops to start the night, and now he'll end it not in the top 3. A mistake we've seen twice over comes at the worst possible time.
Oh, he's going to be kicking himself over that one. I can guarantee you that. That was absolutely disastrous. He was set to go through and win the race in GT3, and now he's not going to be able to finish it at all. Didn't even have a chance to save that, not a hope of recovering.
And that is, well, I'm not sure what to say for David H. Baker. Unfortunate situation for him at this point as he'll fall down the running order. But now it becomes the question for the next car up. What can Henry Bennett do to try and close up the gap?
I think it's a question of is he going to be able to close that gap. Remember, Bennett has been steadily dropping back a little bit. He did close a bit the past couple laps, but overall, you see, lost half a second on the last lap alone. At this point, he's not going to be able to catch it up.
Even with 7 estimated laps to go for these cars?
Well, we'll have to see. Maybe a lap traffic to give him a hand there. Speaking of lap traffic, Andreas Robertson taking a bit of a moment in the bus stops came behind them. Had to cut through and gets a slowdown penalty while he's dealing with some traffic himself. But, Bennett, he's going to have some help here if he's really going to be able to realistically get his way back up there to the front.
See it up on the screen right now as Krum looks to try and secure this run. Bennett really sending it behind him meanwhile into turn number 1. And here we go. You can see he's now in the slipstream of Sergio Moresi. He is interclass traffic that is wedged between this, and that might actually help out.
That actually could. That car right between them right now, if he can make sure that he's not past him by the time they get to the oval, that could be exactly what Bennett needs to slingshot his way back up and into the toe of Kurt Krum. He cannot pass before the oval, though. That's going to be crucial that he doesn't get held up by him on this road course section. This next corner, it could make or break that run.
It absolutely might here. Overrunning a little bit this time. Might have had a bit of hop that time, Bennett. But still has to get around the interclass traffic before he can focus on the race leader. Coming to an estimated 5 laps to go. 8 minutes, 50 seconds up on the ticker. Bennett looking to try and fight for the top step of the podium, but still can't get the run quite yet in the interclass traffic. You can see the difference, though, in the confidence in the braking zone between him and the lap traffic.
And that might have actually checked Bennett up a fair bit. Moresi going to go to the outside to let Bennett through. And he's got one huge gap that he needs to reel in, and he does not have that long to do it.
See this down the straightaway in front of the fans here at Daytona International Speedway in the tri-oval. The gap between the two cars once more is still 2 seconds. So all it will take is one mistake for Crum, and the draft will potentially reel Bennett back in. It's the matter of timing it up just right if you get the chance, though, too.
At the same time, one mistake from Bennett could also hand Kirk Crum the win on a silver, or rather a gold platter.
Absolutely. Great point in that case as well. But right now, Crum being conservative at this point, Bennett is being aggressive on his entries. So the differences between the two right now, pretty substantial in how the driving styles are starting to match out, with the win potentially on the line here between these two cars. The times are within a couple tenths of a second of one another last time by without the help of a draft for Bennett.
Kirk Crum's got that draft, though, from Jared Morgan in the Ferrari up ahead, and he's going to use that to his every advantage. Bennett does not have that luxury on him right now. He's got to find that time in the road course section. If you ask me, that is where he's got to make that time up so he can get within that draft, where it's just not going to happen.
Especially since he won't have the aero push to deal with Nolan.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And that's something he's going to have to focus on as well. Like, even through the bus stop chicane, it's so evident that Bennett is definitely faster than Crum through the bus stop. But he's got to be faster through him in the road course section, or Crum's just going to continue to pull away on the oval.
Right now, their speeds are about dead even, actually, through the tri-oval this time. Times are coming up towards the bottom ticker. It was near dead even, in fact, this time by. And Crum is now stuck behind Jared Morgan's back bumper at the moment. It looks like he wants to go. He knows that Morgan's not as quick. And they're also going to have to deal with Dallas Bataska saying hello.
Oh, hello, Bataska. Knock anybody home. He dived it up the inside of Bennett, almost slid up and took him out as well. A little lockup. So things are heating up today. And Jared Morgan actually checked Crum up. And remember, they have a prototype on their hands now, which could actually be the exact thing that Bennett needs.
Especially if it reaches the right point. But I think there's a chance that Crum lets him go onto the NASCAR oval, with Bataska looking to take the top side. That's indeed going to be what's going to happen. So, quickly getting around, does lose a bit of time. The gap still between these two drivers for the position, though, still about 2 seconds. So it stayed about even, but now Bennett's got the chance to draft off Morgan.
Absolutely, but Bennett is going to need to make sure that he's by Morgan again before they get to the road course, where he's just going to get held up more than he's going to benefit from this. He's going to get a huge tow, but it's the question of...
Oh, trouble for Joshua Wolf! He's crashed on the exit onto the NASCAR oval. He got in contact with a Mercedes. Huge amount of damage. He's stuck in the barrier. That's Nicholas Skeets that is running away from the scene. Wolf was the 4th place prototype as he got involved with a couple different drivers in lap traffic.
Oh, that is disastrous. It was one of the Kinetic Racing guys, and... Oh, hold on. There was a huge crash.
That was Martzov.
BMW. Yeah, the BMW plowed through him.
That was for position with Fasti Ponti. As you'll see this right here, Martzov sent a dive bomb and a half to try and hold on to this as they were trying to get by through the traffic. My goodness, that was a little too ambitious.
That was just absolutely clumsy. That should not have happened in the slightest from that BMW. I mean, I know it's been the final laps, but come on, you got to know better than that than to throw a move like that up the inside.
And now, Wolf's car is destroyed. Trouble for Richie Hearn, who had a chance to move up the pylon. He is stuck in the bus stop in the 70 car. So he went around as well. So the former IndyCar driver losing control in the final stages.
Indeed, and this time, was that with contact? Was that a self-spin? It was a self-spin. The back end came around, he locked it down, and just barely kept it out of the tires.
Some big and there's some of the veteran experience coming in a little bit to try and get that without losing the car and getting back rejoined safely. He's up to 8th position despite the spin there, so he does move in front of Joshua Wolf on the pylon. So the GSRC commentator off to a decent run for this race today. And Facci Ponti is now off the racetrack all of a sudden.
Oh dear, what happened to Facci Ponti? That's not something I expected to see at all. Did he get enough fuel in? Did he not get enough fuel in?
Yeah, he pit the race car. Remember, he got in an incident before. He had to pit again.
Was it damaged? He wasn't really damaged at all. That
But
had
remember,
to be fuel.
remember, Nolan, he had came down before for that incident before, where he did end up coming back onto the racetrack. He might not have added enough fuel, as you said, in that sequence, in the confusion.
Oh my goodness! So out of Facci Ponti's race, he's gone from fighting at about 4th place in class, and he's all the way down to 16th now. It's all gone wrong for UDocs today. For their GTE runner, this is, that was just disastrous.
Overall, he had to serve a minute and 13 seconds. So that was a lengthy amount of time to say the very least. And there's also the chance there might have been, as you mentioned, the damage that might have factored in. But let's go back again to the GT3 class, where Bennett's still trying to reel in Crum. It's still a gap of about a second or so more. It's going right now. That is not getting reeled in at this point, with only about an estimated lap to go for these cars and a minute 33 on the clock.
Well, it's a 3-second gap at this point. The lap traffic playing into Kirk Crum's hands perfectly. Unless Crum spins somewhere, there's absolutely no way he could lose this race.
Has to be very careful, though. That's the main thing. You don't want to give the commentator's curse, as it's called. We've seen a couple times come into fashion. But about a minute and 8 seconds on the clock, and Dallas Pataska taking what could be one of the final laps of this race, if not the final lap. He's right now working his way through the road course section. And Dallas Pataska having a stellar race. He was aggressive early and showed his dominance by pulling away from the rest of the field by 17 seconds at the moment.
Indeed, so Pataska, he took the lead early on. He took charge for what he needed to do early on. And that is probably a celebratory flash of the headlights right there, because he knows that he's got this race all sewn up. If he can just keep it together through the bus stop, he's got that bus stop to negotiate one last time, and then it's just going to be smooth sailing through to the end. There's 1 apex, 2, 3, and 4. Oh, a little bit of a twinge. He almost lost it.
Blanks the lights once again as he celebrates once more. 10 seconds on the clock. It's going to be close, however, if they get the white or the checkered. Keep an eye on the upper screen if it's the final lap or the checkered. Final lap pops up. Dallas Pataska will blink his lights towards victory lane. He takes the Daytona 2.4 prototype class.
He will take the class. Kurt Crump is already off of turn number 4, and he is also blinking his lights because he just realized that he also has won in GT3 today. It'll be Bombshell Motorsports in victory lane for the GT3s, and David Barraclough in your GTE class. He just went through the bus stop for the final time, and he also has no competition.
And for him, he had battled before. with Facciponti, but he took tires. That in turn led to Barraclough coming away with a dominant win over Riley Thompson. David Barraclough wins it. The Bear Claw will celebrate in victory lane at Daytona.
And with that is all 3 class victories sewn up between 3 drivers that were so dominant throughout their classes today. It was a great and well-deserved win for Dallas Pataska, who started pole and won the race. Down in your GTE class, Barraclough worked his way up from 3rd to win, and even in the GT3s, it was Kurt Krum who started far down the order, worked up 15 spots to take the victory.
An absolutely amazing race today, to say the very least. And burnout celebrations are underway as some of the drivers finish up their last laps. Tom Drelling will be the last car to take the checker flag, while Kurt Krum celebrates as a winner of the GT3 class. He'll get to celebrate with Dallas Pataska and David Barraclough today. But let's take a look at your unofficial race results if we can, as these drivers continue the cool down lap for today's racing action from Daytona International Speedway. The man who came up on top today in the prototype class, it is Dallas Pataska, where Tim Clausen's in along with Dawson Brock in the top 3. They finish on the podium for the prototypes. Gabriel Ruiz finishing 4th with Alan Tessier in 5th. Jorge Velarde finishing 6th with Uros Pudicois in 7th. Richie Hearn in 8th with Darlin Mintz and Tyke Henvit. Rounding out the top 10, kept with the first driver 1 lap down. Hermelia came home in 11th spot with Wolf, Lane, Verbroski, and Sharp in P's number 11 through 15. Last cars in the class, Travis Henderson with technical issues, 4 laps down in 26th. And then Ross Banfield finished early with the DNF, about 46 laps down. Then your GTEs, David Barraclough taking the victory today over Riley Thompson. They were the only 2 cars to be on the lead lap at the checker flag, over top Shane Norden, Jacques Shaw, along with Grand Fabrice, Christopher Ems, Stefan Schlacker, and Colin Martzoff. Martzoff involved in the big one we've seen. He finishes still in 8th position unofficially. Win end finished in 9th position with Riccio in the 25th overall position, rounding out the top 10 in the class. Mike Kelly and Tom Drelling in 11th and 12th, Mike Gaunt and Rene Aurora in the following positions, with Andy Banfield, Adam Facciponti. It's a question of what if he finished down in the running order in front of Peter Vostro and Michelle Hagstrom. Also finishing in that running order, Liam Sheen, along with Mike Golightly. The rest of the drivers, Jared Morgan, Sanchez, as well as Alessi, along with Lange. Those drivers finishing down at the end of the 24-car field. Then, for the GT3s, it was Kurt Krum taking the victory as he came home with the W for Bombshell Motorsports to start the season over Henry Bennett. 3rd place went to Marcus Niskanen, while 4th went to Eric Mick. A strong run for Bombshell Motorsports today. 3 of the top 4 positions at the running order end. Peter Balassa finished in 5th, with 6th spot going to Thomas Peterson. Jens Kaiser, Andreas Robertson, Enrico Hernandez-Rose finished behind him with Nicholas Skeets and John Lane. Then Lane finished in front of Sergio Moresi, along with David H. Baker. A one-up for him. One of the fastest cars on the track, the dominant driver before pit stops, finishes with the DNF. Kim Johansson and Joshua Cantena round out the drivers. That's a look at your 56 driver field. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have your post-race coverage. You're watching the Major Series European Region Daytona 2.4 from the virtual Daytona International Speedway. Welcome back, everyone, to today's coverage of the Daytona 2.4 for the Major Series European Split. Live for the virtual Daytona International Speedway on the iRacing Esports Network and RaceSpot TV. Justin Prince alongside Connery Maddock for post-race coverage. Nolan Rempo has also been a part of our coverage for this afternoon's action. It was some great, exciting racing to start off the season, but in the end, it was Dallas Pataska taking home the overall race victory in the prototypes. David Barriclow taking home the victory in the GTEs, and in the end as well, Kurt Crum taking home the W for the GT3s. But it's time to see what the drivers think and how they feel after some dominant runs today. It is Dallas Pataska first up on the stage today. He took home the overall win and the prototype class victory. Dallas, how do you feel taking home the opening win of the season?
Feels pretty good. First race under satellite as well. The car looked great, felt great. Just limited mistakes and came away with a win.
Talk about how you did it, because you were one of the favorites early on. You showed speed in the draft, and then you ran away from the draft as the race progressed.
Yeah, it went pretty well. My main focus was to break the draft and then to just limit my mistakes in traffic, and that was the game plan from the get-go. I think Tim and I don't know who else he runs with, maybe him and Brock were together. They had a really good piece tonight, but I just think I was a little bit better through traffic, and the pit stop strategy played an interesting a role in things with me doing something different from them, but ultimately we ended up at the same point. So it was interesting, but yeah, like I said, main goal was break the draft and then just limit mistakes in traffic, and everything else takes care of itself at that point.
How difficult was the traffic to get through as the race progressed?
Well, I learned pretty quickly who to avoid and who I could really kind of lean into to get some extra time, but it was tough. It was about a 50-50 split through the field, where it was like, okay, these guys are going to be easy, they're going to do what you should do as a slower class in a multi-class race, but then there were other guys who wanted to get out of the way, so it made it difficult, but ultimately I feel like I did the best at it because I'm sitting here talking to you guys first.
Next race, we go Cup Racing. It's the Clash on February the 1st. In terms of that week, your thoughts as we get ready to go to Daytona once again for stock car racing?
I feel pretty good about it. NASCAR is pretty much what I've grown up racing on in terms of iRacing, so it's really a home field type of thing. But it's Daytona, so you never know.
Anyone you want to thank for being a part of your victory today?
Yeah, mainly just all the satellite guys, Nick, Cy, Ferris for winning the international split last night, or whenever they do that split. And really just all those guys for taking me on. It's been a pleasure to work with them so far, and yeah, I'm looking forward to the future with them.
Congratulations on the victory today, Dallas.
Thanks, guys.
That is Dallas Pataska taking the W today. As now, the winner of your GTE class is standing by with Connery Maddock. It's David Barriclow.
Yes, I am, and David, what a well-worked win for you guys here today in that Grizzly TFR Pro Car. Of course, it's never easy, these sorts of races at Daytona, where you have all of the strategy going on in the background, all of the draft going on. How do you guys manage it?
Hey there, Connery. Yeah, so for us, for me, it was a bit of a lone wolf in the GT. My teammates were all in the other cars, mostly the DP and also the GT3. So, well, we've been putting together a setup for the Daytona 24, which was a nice thing to have and use, which seemed to work out quite well for us. It was just mainly about being similar to what Dallas just said. It's mainly about executing a clean race, being good in traffic, and once the draft trains disappeared, going fast at that stage, I guess.
You know, coming towards the sort of second half of that race, you did find a lot of your I guess closest competition really drop off, because early on you were fighting with Fasaponti, I believe, in those early stages, but unfortunately he had a couple of problems and got cycled down the order. And from that point forwards, you guys simply didn't look back. 28 seconds all the way back to Riley Thompson. When you saw Fasaponti have his issues, were you guys rubbing your hands together and thinking this thing's secured now?
Pretty much. I mean, it was a case of you get the gap and then you conserve. And while it was tough trying to pull out the gap against Riley once we came out of the pits on the old tires. I had enough to be able to just maintain it and get through the traffic. And my focus was entirely on just staying clean, not taking any risks, not taking too much out of the car or out of the tires, and I think I did just about enough to maintain that gap and bring it home. So yeah, really happy about it. It's a shame. I was quite enjoying the race earlier on with Adam. He had really great pace. Actually caught back up after losing the draft at the start, and we had a bit of to and fro. There was a couple of interesting moves into turn one, which I enjoyed, and yeah, it's just unfortunate for him. I'm not quite sure what happened. Do you happen to know what happened on the first pit stop for him, or?
Well, he's just trying to think back around about 2 hours
Yeah.
at this point, which is
difficult,
pretty
isn't it?
difficult. But yeah,
All right,
he just
we'll have to go back and have a look, I guess.
yeah. Just hadn't really had a great day, to be honest. But with this good day in the books, and of course the next race being the Daytona 500, David, are you excited for that? Because that's the sort of race where literally anyone can take it.
Oh, absolutely! Really excited for this one. I ran this race in the majors 2 years ago and had an absolute blast. It was really good fun. I wasn't able to run on last year, unfortunately, but really looking forward to running it again this year. And I'm sure we're going to be working hard on the setup and putting something together for that one. The team this year we're with, we've put together the TFR and Grizzly guys into a couple of teams, and it's looking pretty strong so far. So hopefully we can throw together something good for the oval and yeah, go and get some good results.
And before we move on, the whole spiel. Is there anyone you want to thank?
Yeah, so first of all, I want to thank all my teammates. So everyone who's come together in the last couple of weeks, months, and put this big thing together that we've got going on for the major series. Really looking forward to running with them and the rest of the races as well, actually. So it's going to be a good one. I'd also like to thank the rest of the guys at Talk Freak. Who do everything to all the admin, all the things behind the scenes, which just keeps everything going. Like to thank you guys, of course, for broadcasting. I'm sure I'll go back and watch it during the off time during the week. So thanks for that. And lastly, yeah, thanks for the majors guys for putting on the big show. They do a great job, and really looking forward to running with them for the rest of the year.
Well, there we go. David Baracao comes away with the race win in GTEs here at the Daytona 2.4 hours in the Majors Series. An ideal start to the season there, Justin.
Indeed, and we have a few more drivers on standby. And first off, Riley Thompson. Let's see if we can speak with him, the second place driver, finished behind Baraclow. Riley, how would you describe your race today for your machine?
Honestly, it was pretty interesting. I think it was a good start to the season, but overall, I wish I could have gotten a little bit more out of the car.
Describe how it was interesting to you first.
There were a few close calls with other classes. I think some of that could have been a little bit better, and just on the straights, it was interesting how the Ford didn't seem to catch up as well as practice, but overall, I think I did what I could and pretty happy with it.
What sort of difficulties did you have as the race progressed today?
Hitting the wall on pit exit didn't really help too much. Luckily, we had the fast repair, so tried to pit as early as I could for the second stop. And luckily, I think that was about as interesting as it got for me. There were a few close calls with incidents around, but yeah.
In regards to the pit exit, that's actually a good thing to mention because the wall. Why is it so difficult to make sure you get down to speed as a driver to make sure you don't knock it down and move it 10 feet or so, or give or take?
Yeah, it's kind of weird. When I was braking for it, I feel like I used like even less brake than usual, but it just happened to lock up. I think just you're so used to more grip out on the track, and there just isn't as much rubber down there because it's not like everyone's running laps through there. So you just kind of adjust for it every time you go through.
Next races come up still at Daytona International Speedway, but on the oval for the virtual Daytona 500 as well as the Clash. Your thoughts as we get ready for stock car racing on the oval for the second race of the season?
I think we're gonna have a pretty good time there. Last year, I think we had a really good shot at winning, and hopefully this year we can actually finish it off.
Is there anyone you want to thank before we let you get going?
Yeah, all the guys at Total Downforce Racing, Craig set up shop for this amazing setup, Pixel Dust for making this paint, and Blackbox and OpenWheels.com for putting themselves on this car.
Congratulations on the second place finish today here, Riley. Good run.
Thank you.
It's Riley Thompson coming home second. Our last driver standing by is the second place finisher in the GT3s. He's with Connery Manick. It's Henry Bennett.
Yep, Henry, you had a, well, at least decent run towards the end there, but unfortunately it wasn't enough to catch up the margin all the way to the leader of Kurt Crum. Just take me through the sort of last around about 15-20 minutes of that race, because there were a couple of instances where he got oh so close, but he weren't able to latch onto the back, and maybe a bit of lap traffic didn't exactly help either.
Yeah, that's right. I think I would have come out of the pits ahead if I didn't make a slight mistake on pit exit. I got a wheel in the grass on the pit exit lane and almost spun into the wall. So I think that cost me one or 2 seconds. Otherwise, I probably would have come out in the lead. But Kurt and David were so strong that I don't think I could have pulled away from them at all. But yeah, the last few laps, it was just a matter of trying to deal with the traffic so I didn't lose Kurt's slipstream. But yeah, you're right. It's like there was a GT. I can't remember the name of the driver, but a GT car that was slightly slower than us that was making it difficult to lap him. But you know, that's multi-class racing. So really happy to finish in P2. I think it was about 2.5 seconds behind Kurt. So yeah, happy with the day's work.
Yeah, it's still a very decent points haul, coming into the first round of the season. Second place, it's looking pretty good for you. Are you, feeling confident, through the next couple of rounds now, having gotten this one in the bag? Some drivers, they really, really, don't find their footing after they've had a bad first round. But since you've been able to get a good result here, are you able to take any confidence coming into the next couple?
Yeah, it gives me confidence. But I think the road events were always going to be my banker weeks. The oval races, apart from IndyCars, which I'm familiar with, stock cars and dirt, I'm a complete beginner. I mean, I haven't driven a stock car since NASCAR 2003 or something. So it'll be a big learning curve, but hopefully my IndyCar experience will help there.
Yeah, hopefully, it's, a bit bulkier of a car and it has a roof, but, it's all the same on the ovals, right? But just only joking. But, with that done now, is there anyone you want to thank before we wrap up?
Yeah, I'd like to thank everyone at TDR Motorsport. They brought me in at the last minute, last second, and yeah, it's really been helpful. Liam Quinn as well helped me out with setups and everything. Of course, I have to mention my IndyCar team. I don't get interviewed very much these days, so I'll make the most and say hi to them at Powerslide Motorsports.
All right, there we go. Henry Bennett comes home P2 in GT3s here today. Decent finish, Justin.
Yes, indeed. And with that, what your final thoughts after some good racing action today to start the season?
Yeah, it's been a very, very interesting race, shall we say. We didn't get those huge grandstand finishes at the very end that we thought may just happen, especially for that battle in GT3s. But some of the mid-pack battles were very, very good. Of course, you had a couple of instances here and there, and a couple of big ones, especially coming out of the bus stop chicane. But that's just, par for the course when it comes to motorsports. If you're going to have race cars on track, you're going to have crashes. That's just what happens sometimes. But with the first round now completely and utterly done for this year in the Major Series. I think this series is only just going to grow from this point forwards, just due to the, at least the standard of the competition right at the very front of the classes.
Indeed, but it's time to say goodbye for today. The next time you'll see the Major Series for the European split will be for the Clash and the Daytona 500. That'll take place at the start of February. Thank you very much for tuning in for today's coverage here on the iRacing Esports Network and RaceSpot TV. Be sure to tune in later this evening as GSRC has your coverage of the Americas split. That will start at about 7 p.m. Eastern Time here on the iRacing Esports Network. But for our team and Nolan Rempel, for Connery Manick, and the rest of our crew, I'm Justin Prince saying so long, enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and we'll see you next time for the start of the Daytona 500 in the Clash.